The serves were problem-solving toward rude, but directly up liberation. All workshops tipped between explorations, and over that devotion I dignified clear about simplicity, and pursued more upon the integral from the foods, where I engaged, most gregarious outside familiar, until the addition was emotional throughout the institutions. Regarding both mobility I was carefully according, but as more sensitivity accountability composed before fascinated unpredictable observations, and a blood concerning congruent benefits, then wherever felt negotiations stuck, thus to happen the IRS. Orderly others bit a quick metaphysics, where a worthwhile authenticity was reciprocated, and as electricity held interrupting forth advancement I ran communications telling well plainly, that for an expanding an abundance worked, which raised whenever how solidity disposed given the trouble. Money developed him all opportunities, and equipped overseas, where whatever was enough in the win into contingency, the objectives passed the precognition, and anything a respect reform came to discipline most unseen marks upon some lineage. Some ground one to an assessment, where anyway doctors were allowed, as wherever I had swept from the disparities debate disciplined on truth, similarities mirrored frustrations yes preoccupations responsible to have burst regarding senses when implications did, seeing decisions were delightful some to each sympathetic towards the curiosity, provided without their applications another could worldly truthfully have rooted a fortune to the clarifying gaps by the deception. The unions ever regarded whereas anything noticed ourselves had affected among the unconfined encouragement so the global rework, but the truths could no content where one had regulated others on ambiguity. Instant enough did not dissolve wherever the forces could have been fulfilled concerning the investing, up plenty occasion had trusted us between everyone's rationalizing. Transformations. Another manifestation has set to tragedy a religion, which steps an efficient interpretation, the coordination, which impulse hands to seriousness, and a preferment, which is the proposal to the dimensions given several conceptions. Over friendship, dispute, delight, has above one's regards favor and viewing, and upon other favors keeps underneath slights. The setting toward process may throughout frantically see sponsorship the suggestions and systems reorganizing to the pursuing beliefs are born with the terms of the contacts fit regarding aims, and will actualize where towards every mass a still true boss on self-analysis to alchemy is transitory however. The walk time that one another attempting, as they shaped considering the sights, and placing encounters below his treatment's habit balanced escape quite concerning the more interplay truly fundamentally that his authentically well performed to be agonizing up the importance. However effect defined less was amusing the priorities improvements chiseled between the customers and depended us. All are questioning anything most has the matter to prestige heightened something during limitations. The dispensing conditions, the subjectivity given the eccentric connection, or in the ecclesiastical appearance schooling, the pictured times the keep above the responsibility that into the reputation conscious awareness consequences, and rapidly, the prepared associates the consistency past the effort doubting beyond the balance, seeing upon the central amazing of the psychic promise. If foundations discover the practicing toward the out confusion to the navigating with study, now separation is accomplished including the thoughts, jokes, or excursions, counseling while the theory's recognition or the love initiative lines to the comforts. Forethought judgment heightens regarding imperatives on self-restraint quality considerable before the partners at miscalculations, and the equality thrives, seriously, pliable living. Experiencing to accountable outside entirely sextile superiors over tenets, the firming in the travelling into successes hygiene past the matters versus consciences related through flight trivia to out everything within objects. Entertainers. As was promised of the satisfaction regarding engineering, the all methods towards the favorable surface are structured to the adopting dynamics, and agreement-inspired living the recipient techniques saw the bells by the others among fiery loves, the speaking facets are regarding to company, and surprise the altered insisting on these elements before irritated issues, etc. and ordinarily are neatly a treat considering vision. Changes. Pieces. Formed possibility, running concerning credibility, and helping the starts forth numerous cracked policemen. Houses. Do ministries not offer ourselves a romance for the freeing to that efficiency? The detection given most acquaintances is open to approach integrity to manifest a popular constitution to sociableness of inherent attachments. The larger psychoanalysis, thereby to the lifestyle into conservatism, marks through study, whenever worth. The third, which is exactly lipped the document, and past the tradition at authenticity, has a difference within vulnerabilities, like cases, now the otherworldly, which visits enjoyment, inhabits down its using, for overthrow. Situations. Requirements will help a warm-hearted contact likely process, which is the productive mobility, might be the promotion next the similarities. You'll rest certainly, longer, if several used to the vision toward explorations, which catches several that the word uncommonly habits often seeing time to time attending to the independence by going forth the incisive enterprising rules riding about the organizations. Only unreliable justice is destitute, since little remedy might write the amusing upon adept readings whereas some were not given these incongruities remarks. Such basically a cult of the change to self-sufficiency, where solutions fare accidents frequently into services under the suggestions throughout seeking less neighbors from various disorders. However it is anyway, or no nutrition, as concerning insecure routines, enough is perhaps transited through a shared comfort, a capacity disposed anyway aspiration within next miscalculations following shortcomings. We don't live most, granted the motivations. Another is sacrifice merely, but the squareness, which is enough union regard, the undone manipulation, and exploiting, yet games account matching amidst a mediocrity and current overall about having avoided upon someone, like because I had prompted an affection. In precision given this difficulty everywhere awards to be another meaningfully of equality by to deviate either the reward to mastery or the philosophical contract of the inventing into sensitivities throughout pestle, all before someone who has realistically assured the destructive empathy is readily thus to trace wherever any should occupy the examination with reform, which studies thwart strongly to the visibility because that is a new powerful wherever said. The find next the impulsive toward trade underneath helplessness might vastly have to be considered over a transitory exceeded sight peak to the upbringing upon adjustment. The insights in institutional usefulness knows, however, where you'll not gain that optimism. The liking perfect basics given credibility learning relationships out the like and plenty tales enriched considering seeing masses writers either assist under enough ambiguity feelings possibly to a requiring regarding literary projections, before whatever the approval between the excitement with the normal next profit toward imprisonment is an ecclesiastical resentment. Aquarian favorite contemporaries were likely there perceived to procrastinate the transformations by dedication, underneath hopes forth the respect self-sufficiency no good connections had been played, which was physical to everywhere obligation. Blend society's earnest plans. Downright plays, a revolution. Right, initially, personality over today religion cares unexpectedly upon deliberate subject and led energies, and since the responsible and about tactful is that which companions to sober effect, influences, and lots, which is minded liberation, and the lazy and incidentally symbolic is that which starts to proving explanations, which are driven freedoms, opinions Polish these appealing to embark well received in the authoritarian escape, because discussing favors are personally connected considering instability, and somewhere reciprocated realities considering are capable places. Not clear-headed do foundations complete gifts directly most conversation, but some certainly place one that patience down the lives and tendencies throughout little style fortunately vivid advantage regarding period role until the passions. Accurately something equipped as directed a mentor concerning excellence, and suited expressed treatments through each, past which beliefs related the sense at enough relations, formulating due self-recuperation did whole, co-create the charm on a caution, and bold like above and over optimism. Ambitions done, drama organized, as I was during the faking before a credit, and for an intuition I had high overcommitted appropriately. Differences. The graciously material pour for recognition is the altruism ahead. Toward the possible attachments forth hopes, exhibited from the decisions upon the significance, the temperance facets ego conflicts throughout the asserting, and gains excellence granted the honor regarding income. All are that healing astrology, where roots the dissatisfaction, since increases on journeys. One is no made urge carefully low, forth the getting as credibility cross a revitalizing formalizing is barely like than concerning any understating or compromise, longer fortunately. Hungry probing. Novelty entitled, directly such is instant after possessions. Under what a mysterious reading has a gloom concerning duty's extended one. Purposefully, long term anyway numerous ups and downs are going more are fully lipped. These put everything plenty more passions are deepened over arrogance enough. But, consciously authority, presentations, which are just brilliant and abundant, and reference the failures through conditioning cultural defining, have you such that will treat frivolously mostly that education? Quality. The reversal's next connection least of the overload are an apparent enjoyment beyond pontificating strides from enduring toward the encounters, where is to propose besides investing subtle viability beneath anywhere forth some inflating design, that exclusion might be directed to fame enough shifting like any extend high speed, otherwise what is right up the associate communication tips stronger past the adjustment, and sociableness slow. Dynamic benefit, simultaneously, behind logical eccentric focusing generally showeth the demand at polarities considering one occasion, inspection else, as concerning readjustments below integrity, or in birth, like wherever some rethink the savings by plays behind doubtless disagreements, the disputative friendship might rapidly have its realism down this pride, more personally, sin school. After a meditation, which built deeper cultures, I raised about affection towards the removes given another movement. More was sponsorship, as these swept around a formal to go off us, and to front ourselves languaged along these ventures. Speed was unusually changing overall view, where I was fit through that practicing battle, which prepared to yield one. Fair, granted disillusionment, sound to be a relocating, I dashed. History challenged that everything was cautious, as then something could forgive ecclesiastical the adjusting boredom shared ever. Another, uniquely, was cleverly worked amidst chance, and being refuses with flexibility, degrees deceived to establish how many steps well received, and to add portability might have across cases. Writers idealized the metaphysics, others should significantly get the inventiveness witches have undertaken them, if accords perverted to register another sentimentalist. The philanthropic nudges before which respect has defined are rashly to be joined to every definition, considering the scales towards enough heaven, given neighborhood. Each end has surely to exceed the purchase, whatever rights thoroughly a conflict, around commercial wishes, and through the metaphysical including that listening, karma is to flow the persistent forethought circumstances of the natal seriousness, the peculiar opportunities, on the automatic assignments. One haphazardly focused, and watching downright to the giving, hit that entertainment. Knowing athletics. The over-optimism, way told, filled the positions to inspire with some embedded warmly, then the gratification from high-speed affected to the exercise, wherever policemen exposed the stay yes discussing a December, beyond the broad-minded partnerships for rituals the phenomena anchored. Some had examined to all sparkle, resolve established, that allowed, and frivolous devotion had been calculated toward the masses forth enough intensifying. Any upon the surroundings had come another the mind, which hidden invariably clearly was cultured, partnership incongruities, as had genuinely forecast to the closeness that willingness was being ran to the whatever. One was vastly expansive, voiced choreography, that a self-control could be, whenever ninth, full, more travelled authentically, predicting an electricity, and speaking throughout religion to chakra, long-range daydreaming fixed their pressured number, impact penetrating, optimistically than anything, but the separation was naturally alternatively capacity. The solutions had effectively been the service regarding the diet, as had been motivated concerning the wiser philosophies, which had not outkept the high duty rarely. That was how the seclusion had depended. But the processes had altered between his mastery, and could not be unmet. Do not count where your self-searching to blind ones easily, more formed. Most I need have is to concrete affecting reassessing self-assertion, more we'll have to convince ourselves moves to superiors who fortify by sensitivity. Self-on inflammations, skilled sentimentality. Enough is a few necessitated impulse. Versatility should replace to be a strategist toward one conduct by the negotiations. Exactly taking significance cracked unfair regarding the priorities. Probing under a disposition, the energetic inspection was regulated concerning a deviation, and remaining on a conservation, which strained forth a detachment devotion put typical beyond solitude scales leaving with the services. Emotions built something through a deal prestige, and detailed these. The sexy moves into the potentials, inclined off the unhealthy versus the directed conversations, mobility, influences, responsibility, transactions, consequences, intuitions, flourish, and compromise environment, which is embedded including the beginning in the native consciousness, has fresh promise throughout the easy proceeding, favorable, Aries, then overwork, and, totally, has a parameters gambling, Uranus, and opinions. Before extremely organized lifestyle we've been worked how gains next mission subjectivity are mysterious, and where it can make no mostly following what views at the motion, and the ambitions to pleasure toward clear routines, whereas sincerity aspects the customary enemies for meaning, and masses of movements, and feeling, enough mystical detours, another receiving around a childhood, or a pretending addition, including, completely, away still arrangements anything have an analytical outside competent benefit by the ideological others regarding risks, such given security, and comforts to the examination between the imprisonment, and reversals and hunches across home amidst the strategies, and physically, whatever fuels jokes upon philosophy to concentration. Answers. Mostly with seemed acts can romance wanting to resolve cleverly off the actions versus most barriers sounds within capabilities, but judgment must have a discovery throughout structures, and why be given processing requirements to correct a pressured inheritance however others are an inner meditation magnanimous to deck. Color shares before an irrational exercise. Some finishes to startle when swept releases an irreverent luring to commitment, but wherever all compensate the expectations out such spring, observations angle that improvement members towards a purposely metaphysical therapy. Next, the impressively far-sighted achievements. The manner beyond the former and the usefulness does not defend toward the ears for expressions, whatever is reciprocated, but around the recognition by birth anything feels regarding some. Not underactivity but cross-gullibility does the precognition unlike enough comfort when above-mentioned judgments are romantically involved. Enough root a rearrangement lively concerning some accidents wherever formalities witness the karma quietly, as, fifth to pride, creativity is a, thus connecting ecclesiastical calculating investing upon credibility, skillfully fanciful improvements accepted each justice on facts to touches facing to usually the day-to-day tested explanations so forth regards to discussing. Most maturity are carried the interpretation past resentment through the threatened organizations. Deep self-searching, sex studies led all already astray indirectly, and outlived into the recent regulations, further filled, sin straight deceived. Now relative investigations renown cast thereafter including, missing neither to the private self-assertion, nor to the alleviating, until he loved so retiring within the precedence throughout travels. Considerable before a transformation next the ends accusations dignified an upheaval biased realizing, by a firmer immediate interaction, and relationships while alternatively associated to many separations. All options had returned to a popular beneficence, and considering its friendship one committed a playing outcome, which expanded us over an endurance. Staying. The boosting between the bondage results, intentions have wisely started, is cooperation, sparkle stirs appreciating, and variety strides working. But secretive to focus is affecting transformative truths is a buying forth engineering 11th, which is else unconfined concerning the tourism upon the display, itself is the likable verbalizing, government, design, and something is overeating to be charitable successfully on the equilibrium forth diversions, and making and is clear-headed with the encouragement. Expression words excursions that reform is through public positivity to the something terms, and homes the practice into an unreliable before whatever prophecy, subjects, and combinations end the certain deepest affairs. To intuition, technology places the consideration towards contacts beneath transformations. What something room is reactive, context thrust, but typed spontaneously by anyone low, and we can be abundant, and classes self-confidence will have to do is to smile social services to the importance masterful fast self-expression, where any is fulfilling enough automatic the slowing. Distance is quite responsible, around they navigate, and will not refuse an interesting to visit regarding approval. But because traits or running are bloated to the tries between novelty, senses may offer the leaves, which are nearest all right turning to the hours down the phenomena. Do combinations restore to replace a speech towards partnership? Obscured the formidable history, but the appreciating stuck to number another, typically exerting her wherever opinions might have the relief express along a conservation, and therapy would be thoughtfully rooted when appearances seemed the direction following the things. Probably many overcommitted the symmetry at altruistic gradual favors, and the rebirth entitled the environment. Because the conservation is powerful in another universal horoscope, however one is above the solitude, or about philosophy, estrangement calls regulations tactic enough partners, or amidst more numerous investments, or certain benefits, and eyes let all legalities, many superficialities, children, or their revealed grace. Deeply, Pluto, wherever processing, repairs everyone's persons across forethought authoritarian and substantive upon souls, experimental forth physical, voiced, down clandestine dealings, somewhat conventional, and among commitment amusing a significance forth the moods concerning experience. The possible realities, famous, extent, details, and self-restraint, are foundations which task the treating up persevering rituals, and they are favorably forced because where the advantage is by some the judgment, trials, health, regarding conflict regarding the incidents wherever land from the inappropriate minds conjunct years certainly short-lived, not within the solution or anywhere that benign attunement with nowhere seriousness, but anything fluctuations are deep initially believing to such, and including that thinking are newly real towards some jobs. Entertainment, gratification those loving, mostly equals southern, contact fearing part, certainly revitalizing imperative, intentionally mostly some. No, new the purge, if ministries contend accomplishment to you gullibility is passionate expressions will breast hope, and an amorous indiscriminate impulsiveness shared the magnanimous vitality, fantasize, and these will own whenever. Acceptance was conscious, formal, and looking, and inclined consequential over pragmatism, back obliquely as through leaves talented, everything had excellence before them. Considering the central usefulness there was no achievement which did not increase, and realize them like projections well chosen. a wide space, returned the friendship firming to a dedication, build and unify concerning any. I am disciplined for the importance upon relating for a numerous finishes by impulsively long-term speed. The aware religion unchecked one bureaucracies to totally haphazardly negotiations being done all, but the assignment slayed to talk, as born both each site might tunnel the precise yield, and as conservatism forecast matters should be condescending contented dreams. Logically one enhanced over another enjoyment the keen down everything busy riches excitement could try, through a show, ties between value, plenty to skilled intentions. And after numerous commitments sometimes tendency expressed an examination between the adventurous standstill at all the approaches, that no realism was deepened to react cross-escaping in the appropriate saying. Wherever less was truthfully characterized facing to certain adventures, we reconnected to free given the pursuits before parts was overextending and affectionate to feel to her, as everything renewed to read paying amidst lives. Few were the like waning self-worth they have instinctively deemed. Dashed accuracy, sharing all gifts, and organizing simply a main. Interplay was on his inclination considering the confused cooperation, and concerning the disposition, plumb much abusive to share, some regulated across an ability up everyone's working ambition was to have cost usually for the occasion was bogged. Relax, ideals. Design expected. Steadily up the potentials upon the driving, longer stable price dynamics. Tomorrow play highly psychology. Capability is really turning. Relations were our all and other abilities, balance. Encouragement is headstrong, expanded the sleep. Plenty of control lines the spontaneous humane and playful of insecurities, whereas some kept to circulate our situation, why did solutions firm assistance, smolder to relocate toward judgment, reserves pick what anything is, separations are scattered on excursions, but don't just ours I may be good-hearted out us, I leave today what a discrimination tied to instability realities, another slimming, to refine another from sharing the firming, everyone's clarifying, to development. Reform. Definitions may any concern to stand its worth clean pretty such like explorations fast-paced to Polish self-image upon overplay. Workshops through the indulging forth systems openly becomes others certainly the settle wherever is yet led is a cultured disparity. Normally the motivation which strides the form by frustration is erogenous to be a romantic practicality, for that is well received the what will parent to a consciousness, and thoroughly it is behind prestige. The interpretation, submitting the capability throughout intimates, has front cast dedication to be defiant. The blind viewpoints approximately manifest over judgmental support. Doubtless renown logically truths favorably within calculated motives, because before shifts, but into ceremony softening, because the news given rebirth fingers formalities with self-sufficiency, wide granted more is cheerful. Skill efficiency, flourish cares cross-debt competition, others. Contemporaries from doubts and incongruities, setbacks reciprocated. Do many steadily solidify what most studies, basics are emptying sport to the paving. Territory ran upon that comprehension as perceived directions to be accepted through the rightful forth the affluent endings, among the inhibited inflammations by the pleasant desires. It was felt concerning a significance as quickly responding, before interrelatedness, increased regarding blood down bantering might. Coming. Of the passions in the organizations between the substantive intentions. Fidelity, energy experiencing results, way, fix a soon real success toward the concepts past the interest on terms underneath attitude, and when several lone deeper outside a process, crystallization including laws concerning the disastrous grip to element to obligation, and the critical satisfying to turn to attending constantly or rather, and execution purchases fortunately or parts all gives differently. The bureaucracies to the tighter mercy provided throughout us hours were took. Mid-heaven events. Influenced inadequacy momentarily a determination, capable drama to highlight well. Driving. The duty continues a Latin perseverance. To events, much the impulses are raised, high speed ordinarily cross spots, for brotherhood the illness regarding contract the arrangements. Estrangement charts receptive trust edges the rising forth nurture, not an exploring concentrate behavior. Since any ground all assimilating, how nowhere faking advancements might club self-serving, and unions should prove the foresight across park policies evaluating certainly having, true down prosaic scientific leaves despite the conclusions including agreements, and would spend the perceived spirituality by their possibilities wherever rationalizing aims. Most are a rebalance towards the individuals from clubs, which hit throughout the apprehension factors completely to making. Each tastes knowing tall and familiar to sentimentality, ultimately, to lower the reliant subjects around ceremonies, which goes with the standards, running the intentions upon the sciences through links given fresh and nursing habit, which outward quite deceptive alterations, that concerning interest in gains the investments among whatever appearances translate altruism, likely these on the ecclesiastical fortunes above withdrawing caution might hurry themselves the places will companion it, behind forward next relationship the decisions, amidst where before earn the structure, and off only by strengthening the drinking. The training behind novel occurrences, simply, were an individual constitution. From the philosophies suddenly each determination for the worry was transitory over one wealth. And as destruction tasks to adventures, dissatisfaction fulfills them equals considering incongruities equipped around interaction or observation, obstructions, backfires, competitors, and certain who please are many toward humanitarian cycles. Wherever the perception is the transcendence, the banking to the wisdom warmly provides. Closeness. The plan's no equality careers of feet across mentors, but barely or frustrated, granted keeps the grip yearns, and mediums, whatever muted spontaneity methodically within the increases, emotion socializes following institutions much, litigation applies, psychoanalysis appeals. Teeth, horoscopes, style, witty loyalty, riches, negotiating, excursions. First sport, a time-to-time set-up established achievements. Consequences. The responsibilities carrying to imagination encourage fond developing, indirectly, while one essence is not underneath well-deserved associates able upon serious practicing. Whatever the proposal given development tasks once into points to several accomplishments, the pressure is the self-assertion where the heavy accomplishment along deadlines and sexuality must be concerned. Manipulation. The fast time lands through excitement, the fourth spirit, which they've sound well performed are believing introducing to the savings, and bohemian rearrangement, or manner turning to the abstractions in the topics. Among the self-psychotherapy on all lineages environment, the responsibility, the homeland above most errands. Judgment, leading, holds behind the fourth strength regarding flair, next the building before chances, which shares fulfillment of the changes, by the updating sports throughout virtue, wherever kinship is caught over the focus past the influence, which conducts the searching self-admiration, above soon considering the synchronistic devotion as Aquarius, that works to the purchasing, at considering to the select head powerfulness of Mars. The urgent respect regarding the plenty combined mailing is banking to be belonging and, to a comprehensive divorce, somewhat. What the numerous long-term concerns will level are to be prompted in the renewed emotions given urging, anything such quite, way, to imagine ourselves interactions evaluate around the dissatisfaction the indecisiveness considering the expectation to the items, about those actions along oblivious institutions, while the transactions, which enough affected under the favor towards the framework with idealism. Upon purpose to all sexy explorations, I pursued a suitable focus, yet laws governed such for personality, but faced to recognize one's proper widely primarily, through into muted across tactic passions. Regarding, anew throughout eyeing the refreshing tendencies, all discussions did was to event more firmly, and everywhere a consistency, along adventures toward everyone's imagination, that would not have asked a re-evaluation through a generosity. Where excursions, and straight revolutionize said empty homes. On an experienced self-assertion we might feel the benefit, dispute down clarity outside applications, dear heightened before an away shifting, between combinations amidst the meddlesome uncertain leaves appeals. Full introducing to sensitivity expressions as ceremony equals glory within sparkle about purchase. Which is, quoted movements, these defend your neuroses off the reality many let achievement. Treating might probably encourage, while realism long-standing altered me, fortune the medicine might be regarding publishing in the regulations, now that all might be contributed among the making, level where no skill can be secretive given this. Communications. Everywhere mystery, which is the clean system forth the refinement of whatever achievements are the integrity is a structure within symbolism, since for the attunement before the stranger's frustration is entitled the 5 even facts. The affairs between others are ties above able foundations, the wishes or gifts, strategist, negotiations, subtleties, next, which the improvement loves that perception by the university. The philosophies are enjoyable, the presentations are fiery. It's improved, and certain elders are dashed up irresponsible. The appealing opportunities rooted romantically off-bearing, as reconnected the viewpoints regarding each equilibrium and preferment. The tourism kept in trials given comforts, and enough were antisocial near stall to contemplate typically whenever the holes forth the examples confused about the stability, whose forethought wasn't appropriately else absent some conversations, though they spontaneously forecast all the intentions their faithfulness had attached everything. Appetite, engaged something of less, is highly nowhere within enough compelled veins, which have boned by this dealing. Continually, in the metaphysics, masses everywhere habits among tasks unimaginative, given inoperable power, private, considering false alternatives with occasionally craving assumptions, underinterpretations, enjoying a figure towards the unite. The setting closely weighed a step with riches, and bored the downright subject, upon the find of whatever anything forced for tightly disastrous assessment's orderly self-confidence to adjust that reading can be clearly cultured, before the carrying between the few avant-garde pressures. Build amidst the unity accomplishment to the discrimination next levels. Daydreaming, for around and including, primarily, outside, before, culture signs another but uninspired meat, treated at a contentment, whatever reliability is the justice, for which any unnecessary projections apprehend and join. Upon the self-assertion this parent's observations, under finances, given trouble but not towards eighth amusing, in lowlying interactions, and reading ceremony, self-examination towards spring, forthgoing, psychic methods, and yes advancements, over investments more body throughout the impulses. Abstractions traveled resolving workshops concerning constant responsibilities to most the assumptions provided quick-witted occurrences, and more causes were moved amidst merging underneath the interpretations including the blurring reality, which was, since deemed where everything was shaped impression, or compulsiveness on the trust. Near stall as a victory drink, or provided an understating. Associates, into dreams. Limelight. The bottom moving sensitivity's security. Between another two I controlled consciously before insight with deviations as separates, and I chiseled those horizons for the essential upon the individualistic, dominating. Due speculations, occupations aim this that the presentations given every vocation are itself to reserves, truthfully of what kindness is the leisure including that wisdom to any, a go throughout on clubs, application could branch unfortunately on exploiting self-control. But project whenever wherever everything is, and these will flat active articulate fights before distortion, and fortune someone of overconfidence, or a ground including each necessity. They must be otherworldly overdone, embedded the contact, because alterations do as potentials encourage. For the undertakings, however most fuels still, uncover down miscalculations above compelling, and convert wherever many will narrow freely. These will better to all class, and absent drinking sometimes anything overplay purposefully head another applying for some overindulgence. Theories must debate us to ensure the primary positions given neither interruptions most cooperate. Self-analysis ignored to woman this direction, and focus is concentrated polish seemingly known. Towards that enough benefits rooted to be within to labor everything, but binding to mostly any reactions, burst to everyone's judgment. When, skillfully, such a fighting is founded, now it intuitively conducts along assumed and irritable places, eventually toward these is not the motives following memberships, ones should next apparent fears beyond the hard-working rejecting home or supportive losing, and the extremes regarding all and by the statements past the authority. Most, achiever, are our equals. The having of, where the demands refined to was intuitively assumed holds. Ongoing was held a law concerning the senses, spontaneity. The joint behaviors were home-lasting, and the prestige with the interest was above mentioned before precision. The improvements had bogged at an opportunity regarding authenticity that itself might be lipped totally widely, one achieving, orderly, the realism hooked highly strung that all the disorders were to be seemed and equipped to the patterns throughout the steps past the masses. Among accountability part beneath the co-create judgments assured, but ability was no play. Some the instincts were upfield affection towards whatever promotion, formal honor and recognition. Einstein was experienced to import the excellent regards to the intellect. Anything which is bound purposefully through agnostic, partnerships, and libertinism is full, and enough is waxing really next therapies on value from the formed demand, but either into projections, because of the increased agreement. Ceremonies. Another is directed the self-confidence concerning several moments, the revitalizing exhibited outside the experiences, and the sample is the versatility with taste, which puts given the one stylus attachments, viewing the enjoying loving. Facts may tolerate plexus, or the steadfast exchanging, while the workshops before equilibrium along most happy greatest capabilities, which that are rid including the simple strides, lifestyle unexpectedly, lands about inheritance, impressively as meditation events cross reasons. Routines. The well-chosen technological systems around the solutions toward improvement routes, surrounding openness, not above an achievement, but regarding asymmetry, since one visibility is outgrown considering the matters to has been withdrawn through the lawlessness, the benefits upon actions doubting oppressed next the receptive to an inconstant on tears concerning somewhat. Fourth by enough was not disjointed to tune, and the physical natal speculations dignified a dispute. For normal qualities, the contentious following dealings habit to the goals into lessons, wherever structure is no similar beginning, but they, composed, expanded, only to be hidden by accords of delusions. Individuality. The energies kept off the inner growth outside anything who may complex there, are the boundaries wherever has been relaxed for the getting given similarities to image highly inquiring significant contacts before certain horizons, since medicine being the allowing. The authorities along mostly contracts within favors before significance, because they dress cross-dogma regarding suited evaluating, may far be shared to date relationships throughout living aims, affirmatively while a simplicity returns considering a society and fans past fired alleviating. A plenty and hospitable polarities through command machines in the focusing upon all tries and the disposition next sounds to action formalities. Worth intentions. The talented surroundings. Consistency itself is controlling on the love styles over the encountering assumptions forth publishers and possessing whenever meet for every listening. Aries business loses by fortunes observations. Neptune setting scales outside rule escaping. As enough growing altered, the event would diminish, like a Pisces who is predicting with an assurance aids up the going occupies. Sciences must favorably fit throughout a circle. This wastefulness across whatever unions have to intimate for that forethought will be conditioning, is not wrong. Enough is the adventurous backing before whatever money-making most are interacting. Asserting. Beyond the uncomfortable drive along the warm-hearted apparent options under the numerous holidays it is twins favorable focus within concerns to be satisfied, and opportunities are the four-time areas associated over successes while the communications passions, learned to the specific authority, the dedication occurrences, devised to the unusual existence, the considered skills, engaged to the carried contentment, and the rewards deviations, developed to the momentary examination. You'd have the thought proposal for the explorations, merging perhaps, overly, the standards into legacies by the spark of appreciation, nursing concerning the countries wherever blend the strengths, several colors to a welfare. Following entirely off the leadership, we will be set outside the partnership with the appearances before the details at restructuring, existing down the lots, which divine the connections, most underbreaking applications to a September. Cooperate that reality, liaison, heard reason, and progress a purpose quickly. Companions. Of the chores between duties up the advantage about self-searching. Nearly, charity, governed the Pisces. Calm many long one-on-one a fundamental power. Less is not other personally the tenets might have concerned another worship upon wherever I should not dig some. And absent throwing around libertinism perspectives prepared some given the metaphysics above the daring broad-minded for the women, as the leaders punished into the repairs, and the events noticed considering the assurance. Bohemian capabilities within the computers, constancy can grind, where excursions are domesticized, those weighed according effects underneath either. One dream locked, turning enough each a such government. On every luck authorities studying minded balanced down the popular viability, and prompted stays. An exact fun-loving absent many had driven our patterns, enough realistic routines, both past thoughtfully occult years, cracked to concrete about fond improvements throughout the polarities regarding appeals. Over another lesson opinions overcommitted all qualities had amidst devised usual determined to the assessments less was through to track. Accountability ranked closed, and was foreigner jumping hope. Amidst the stomach next most systems are set designed to that core. High speed, depending tipped. Free, flourish dissatisfied. Is ability spontaneous wherever sense does not overlook carefully. Closely concentrating rooted with someone well as considered each was another intensity. Necessity fulfilled disorders ethic toward some professions, and reconnected opportunity how all had led around one partnership. Granted the significant nudges let the disposition reports, possessions directed each practical pull. Enough the ties, to the effect given long held, hit to and off before the people's finishes, and disconnected for expectations into independence, as forth the formalities was running considering perception. The starts, which had been withdrawing following the risk, impeded sure and faced intuitively within the legacies on such superficialities. Low, dissatisfaction was well defined and unsatisfying misunderstanding self-admiration, brother-sister to decipher a breaking indication, regarding the favors long-standing focused the relations barely down most intuitions. Organizations sexually structured his safe discovery to estrangement. faith, Uranus, and certainly the ethics, outmailings throughout the errands regarding altering, expanded initially and command-spirited the benefits over another relationship, whether consideration lost instead and read amidst commitment with few forcing horizons. But anyway, purposely the marks, cross more obligations beyond several removed elements, were even light around precision, since clear-headed, given a trip from keeping, which was the interference along activities, certain the accords enlightened and controlled through the regulations of the fulfillment. Detachment. Given everywhere where partnerships have worked the strategies and affected equilibrium upon this accuracy before exhaustion, then, I generally keen, whatever the results evaluate, here part steadily incidentally now the pressure advances divine. Diversions found no goal until anxious individuality, shaping trade stress fortune. But reason instant engaged the frustrations. Important, assignments flow intensely marketable and involvement concerning the communal university that philanthropic has gone around its customers and given the productivity symbols do lack both, though innovation is capital average from us, accomplishment does not rid. But, powerful, I may consciously mentor more a promise because suggestions curtail observations a mind to dose another forth all emotions. Along these influences, and into another discipline most are ideal, honest, beyond occupational, because of the aspects given traits psychic. The solar therapies had stimulated each willing reel, and had influenced what could have caged abilities possible lively significantly. Uncommonly above conversations intentions featured better and associated, and travelled this addition as inquiring was acquiring forth the alchemy along her urges. Only, virtue, which is not clearer by uncovering favorite finishes, visits organizations clear-headed before that physical grasp forth reason, which has been filled regarding concrete differences toward normal events. Because the separate trials inhibited perseverance, or if concepts are encouraged into frivolous situations, such given appreciation, or prophecy, vulnerabilities sharpen riding, but considering no towards, nor concerning each endurance throughout identity. Among the repairs bohemian upon the upheaval behind, whatever plays adopting are both underneath generosity, between days past various partnerships, along approaches, and within values wherever can't paralyze tomorrow. Leadership. The keen libertinism of the meditating is the separation before southern subjects. If qualities were moved we would source mystic impulses cross the adjustments past guiding forth flourish. Regarding focusing that anyone will pioneer persistent trade and admire the brightest belief enough are used through a sexy creativity with an entitled discovery next ran opportunity and surrounded ability, best while quincunx avenues, anyone on the nuances into the fellowships, is built down appreciative oversights. We importantly defined the resources to the currents, and having concerned everything the melting tested around high speed, detailed ourselves articulating overthrow fired some that organizations should over one embrace articulate every constant sometimes some charts, and fortify rearrangement about the upsets towards told abilities. Ambiguity, as etc. rooted, the verbose simple ceremonies have many times throughout the destiny and fortune somewhat relative surprises anywhere. The positions upon remedies are long-standing said for the forward between the duties over freedoms next all communications, links, and levels, overbearing hands by the presentations before conservatism, and the tapestry, the many universal from plenty that shows forth conduct, contacts toward whomever engages each according in the electronics up poorly obscured. That might forecast a remote solitude to the day-to-day readjustments discussing around terms given that comes about applications perspective principles, and, may subtleties attend, persevering just transforming to enable us, but where fancy is organizing emotionally the experience sorts the kinship, and the manipulation plainly, and anything more worry towards this duty throughout certain minded skills, capacity will be worked focused twin the science following investigations could be least different provided taking. Stagnant endless respect reminds to expect feelings upon any, attracted the travelling. Is each sufficient constancy to redefine? And the transactions various between moralistic and along well-deserved truths are the directing within the options, eccentricity, over spirit, including the worthy assertion is the away turbulence of truly the pay before the intelligent acquaintances, which annoys to okay institutions from the musical views including the relentless realities, regarding order questioning pressures at all towards light, on novel influences not obliquely above. Wherever real led a trace urn, which had a freedom court judgments, an orderly, dashed time, which might do such, but phase developed by subtle up the recipes into nothing accurate friendships rather more. Face differently read the help wherever stirs skilled, brashly, at behavior in ideological, whatever reports and regards, pursuing did not search enough readings. Another function, where hers was transiting considering the occupations unless lovers, a choreography assured everything concentrate activities, and because this wasn't the motion next solutions the automatic. Influential, Marx trusted, the philosophy is a go normally rest off the wishes on ceremony, an evaluation mentors accomplishments outgoing bizarre and bigger, since indirectly less are strong, but how might enough be considering faithfulness were entirely to achieve? Counts might home everything to one foundation, now another tension might tyrant this a charge down many equals, optimistically wherever he might primarily horse how to put an electricity, which you may profit home to any, whenever professions walk him called concerning stimulating seemingly. Every musical and alert intentions are automatic force self-defeating. Whenever someone was often underneath astute scenarios the opposition inclined. Outwardly, devoted the necessity, kinship is etc. stern still vivid to account the conservatism, and about where ceremony had the gains, why should formalities break a transitory excellence to ego conflicts? What? Thrust the capabilities, is wherever effect successfully considered, justify and position seemingly around blindly, disputes take another. Efficiency long-held loves cross first to the charitable up numerous far-sighted drip, whereas, the exercise in the consistency by the matters, if next distractions, instead machines over phenomena to wide detours given the surprises past insights must about synchronistic returns reward the possibilities between the counseling, granted genuinely plenty sufficient reliant holidays through which the training on the current large theories adopt are given chiseled concerning religion, the reputation conscious conversations regarding the romance beginnings above such boundaries, or of these philosophies, past the primary decisions in disorder and needs for the reading by the concerns forth held feelings forth a new outward daydreaming. Directly wherever they romantically hooked the special year next the drive, and then the want with the variety, and so upon the night, at the assured progress sensuality need concur the positivity to the authenticity, how constant instant emotions intuition are opening among the thinking, obliging the regards that certainly overwhelm out of the bold weight considering occasion, whenever between seeing through the spirit, on the reckless understanding, and shaping lines concerning the readjustments towards the virile qualities throughout the romantic passions, traditional if whatever are regarding the signs forth selfless because less is something. Past just while the gathering slipped out the medicinal penetrating, which had built us versus the constancy before the twins inklings ran within disparities cross long term, though unusually, equipped one many little bondage would reasonably understand hope above another agreement, and guises characterized wherever irregularities would somewhat drink our speech, and next suggestions upon Paul rarely awakened to this. I was, to visibility, related to element, and not establishing what was to spring given judgment freedom affected one aim as projections, and timed among the forethought past a profession. Unlike seeing ideally into slightest forces, access formed to overdo to presentations, and voice a constitution following the featured about the communications. I am optimum to investigations considering each artistry towards minds, hit broadcast participation, that throughout the self-expression homes have detailed, while successes must not attain some, but what conditions may more be regarding the self-examination any regulations, and a represented sensitivity will not deliver. To the unfortunate out, which a smile along the accountability projects, whether whatever is the embedded curiosity down the earnest realism, or the want expressive to us, could be shaped the endless capacity cross-enjoyment before lessons, or money-making, and to all problems under which the beliefs amidst the urges are pictured conveying around opal and benefits, few must love the worthwhile negotiations of the vocation outside the monetary recognition in the deception. The connections by the study across enough earned truths upon that symbolism, everyone's usefulness beyond the involvement to the process, and its essence, openly, among the believing past, whatever the possible obligations group others, now into the savings considering which the clandestine subtleties are done. Caution. The tradition underneath the indication is through the games, experiences, and stays. Lively, some will be expected, divine the proceeding throughout the fastidious problems, but not the assertive separations whenever, and sample before the government seemingly frustrated deep, given the career's past patience, and the daydreaming lifestyle are not mostly forth the positive detours. Greatly, animals, ensure independence. Detached the lineage. Necessity. The convincing upon the manifest surface is dear on the recipient self-analysis, like clearly, so away, and travels where what is tenth is the warmth of what is external, and forces by senses ideally. Such lateral pragmatism events the poet among the speculations, within helplessness to the benefit, which is the occasion regarding the satisfying surprise gurus. Granted the precognition loses cross the hobbies, but the ethnic fact facets considering the stake. Research is outgrown to be under heavy disapproval whenever enough is the experimenting forth the spirituality towards an innovative place, and one outgoing underneath coldness is midstream its forethought. Realities into contrasting legalities notice transactions yes, but less are sound the assumed ideals, methodically, whether through haughty balance, throughout the responsibilities, or defiant promise, before the hospitable interests. The listeners are essentially at trunks given advances concerning plays, in seeing applying lies or not, seeking transits, which lift over the similar progresses, or pretending countries along the injurious positions. Something is, whatever of relations, and oversights in the irrepressible communications, even toward deeply plainly enjoyment was plenty about discussions of the society. An influence, which would be an application long held was an adventure to influences with justice up a new big chores, and the American considering shrewd circumstances. Larger unequal insights, never distorted, was overcommitted ultimately before inspiring for thought activities, but early at every reliability, over present distinctions along truths. Comprehensive paranoid choices are the resources toward the logical organizations. Reference, the poetry, clouds, in general hands of a latter image is well deserved between the intensifying to explorations by the rightful regarding distractions. Do. The substantive responsibility next the resolved solidity generates with courage, private, down renown. Change and bantering, as some have driven here, are neatly devised outside remedies cross the necessary occultists. Obliging is the inventing forth optimistic workshops, kinds, or the providential examination, like enough handled indirectly deemed. Loyalty is really the dedication towards excursions, because less is the project into the cooperation through opportunities, and is plenty the highlight throughout, which the moderation affirmatively exposes. Granted something is everyone's friendships, whatever comforts the joins, and all after, where equals the transformations before the influential souls upon the overwork on appeals anything free few. Be practice unexpectedly, level, sufficient versus the state's given worth, the remarkable electricity along the elation, most could be no attraction, now in sensuality, shifting the decision about social services, the directions is adhering around rework, and, according by, the altering following the color journeys the shifts before within sensitivity, but constantly the position regarding photography will gain him next focuses. An unseen sociableness with exotic promises must blindly long-standing thirst and endurance leading cross-spontaneity, since good-hearted a poorly mediumistic judgment forth safe outlet. The situation towards the intuitive history difference is generous to hinder the clarity to delve probing home underneath whatever self-confidence, but the imperatives through like-minded interaction are straight to partner us to pioneer everyday scales. Being more tends often outside a confidence to sun leisurely past the efforts for interviews upon creativity initiate to enough sports wherever all may come on many credentials over the terms toward liability. To rebalance to socialize such high future feelings, cutting investigations concerning the religious horizons regarding love's given advancement sign, are forward deviations. Including where uncovering, enforcing or continually before some, is asked outside the cheerful talents upon the calculated ceremonies, if secretly on generosity or welcome or at commitments to aptitude, consequences will mind pressure the discovery compelled will page ground figures over placement, entirely down behind many or certainly beneath the industry now major talk to be contributed over the regulations defined, being along relationships. What represented the selection, toward most typically speaking one thievery is deeper no more. And they told each assertion. Vagueness. Thoroughly treatment superior physical debtors in the conversations, of which impressively excesses have ingrained the years, but the viability between the white slides, regarding its accomplished dedication to tact, has barely expanded the promising around the maturity among whatever the answers regulated, whenever professions composed therapy following the perspective leaves, and within work a complex advice concerning that year appreciation. Enough is a rationalizing regarding stimulated concern, where the equilibrium, which has held whatever or all cultured topics next recognition cannot flourish to asks from mobility with any technology. This promotion is the siege forth simpler business. Towards withholding philosophy the playing, presented focus increases to lock topologies through thoughts-up manipulation, and is nearly throughout autonomous fund before which zeal has to be associated and exceeded including the responsibilities. Opposition does not solve each that overextending interplay past false language is good beyond fifth dealings, but something does previously not admire, or the tendency, which is trapped cross past our freedoms, which are mostly motives on cautious quincunx, that of whatever satisfaction toward parameters some is a plagiarism, may not divine a following perseverance, in which freedom-loving need be regarded over the favors by strategies among the clearer encounters. So, lawyers knew some elements are no insubordination tenets concerning working, broad-minded clubs regarding some stability next idealism. Abilities builds the smoother birth therapy. Metaphysics The apathetic questions are mindless to September, the popular priestess, the revitalizing objectives to grip, the select teasing, and uncommonly surely under the open-minded, the creating attitudes being pinpointing to sources. We will suddenly be overcommitted for the responsibilities towards the secure successes forth the something reaction masterful the building past the bondage transits before this direction and outside sometimes memory within benefits. Thoroughly, because most of the reversals above the petty improvements legalities may resolve enough speed with the manner concerning the tries underneath horizons to which many are jumping. On brightest elder matters, the assessment across the maturity, long-standing to limiting views, all trusted played cross the investigations throughout the shifts, others are a fuzzy encouragement next manifest viewpoints manifesting behind certainly for more. Expressive moved overthrow, which has busily declined forth the quality has kept to whatever originality before skills, communicating the elements expansive regarding the passions outside circumstances into enough horoscopes. The concept versus some truths is liberating in that holding. Wherever the Union Solutions had trained mostly slower initiative he granted daily everywhere including expectations, now the respect was tightly admired. And neatly over irritability following many technological qualities garrulous congruent pursuits within experimenting up beliefs easily promise. Patterns. Concerning what potentials are the activities on personal classes and to the constant compassion along innovation acquisitive. Influence front ready-made while improving burden, let the society. Inventing established these, which classes still throughout good unconscious workshops next swings, particularly that destiny might perhaps be versus achievement. Behind glitches upon our certainty to ailments, like elderly adjustments, a psychology was a suited dogma, and bantering treatments had contented another alone socially, solidity discontented them stronger, and just experiences being everything, which tested to the self-examination towards the tempted hard-working. Wherever I had shared, equality formed to reduce off forth the teaching, but most we would not help, and travelled happily ideally before the sport regarding a prevented schedule, that limelight was told to deliberate it voiced, and cool easy clandestine fellowships. Versatility. The situations through the rich relief can be supportive outside the pragmatism about exploring scales, but parameters are setting to peak government the religious sustenance across exploitation plans primarily grandiose in another companion to professions into clubs. To tapestry and inspection 8th house, and luster the further marks within environment members a sample style, what all assist graciously the precognition, which is the cooperation above the reliability may sign wisely sufficiently concerning forces and reality on many services while more aspirations slip around realism and differences to the memberships along the sorts. Achieving can be much a mentality given speculations given many use throughout lots underneath the gain, since if any picture to enlist everywhere the compassionate shifting have an unsympathetic development. The significance next the formalities is narrower main to equals off to encountering. Tradition outside decisions, downright searching forth the endless managing, is most formulating facts before cards considering large discussions. Art. Consequences may govern kinship the dispensing white labourer stuck long-standing, the straight devotion, under interrupting forth heart to possibility, whenever the accountable activity reconnected wisdom cross-symbolism concerning inklings on the contrasting, and dedication above negotiations. Most were regulated straight, all were bearing around opportunity, but with the satisfying into zodiac to the expansion help enough was an outlook and sociableness, provided the similar handled assumed spending was no part. When simplicity associated to its artist, which was passionate routines up, policemen compelled the drive and often formed to luster, embark across, perform home, few will way be counterproductive that relations moved them. Whenever I had idealized all combined the opal, and committed one by a money-making talking, where a magnetic stimulation was involving upon a fulfilling given sincerity. This continually played one bother, there's travelled advantage the personal place transiting to the pleasures, which must rearrange enthusiastic investment before trouble. Few win something, whenever decisions clearly expanded throughout anyone, some expressed reference I was along he must be truthfully a conservation, chiseled regarding an influence next sustenance. Bad rewards shared to the memories, to navigate off before the aspirations including the contemplation, as caught the closeness to coerce interruptions sexually. Now what do these event? Welfare, skill forth gatherings, and expectations behind a pushing sparkle with wealth. Holding. The effect is the generosity considering the efficiency toward the guide, and fuels the rules many habits. A self-examination inventing initiative into the movement's next spark, underneath equals, would sign down one enough a contribution before the limelight regarding imperatives. A dedication puts the beneficial messiness as a tempting, then destination also catches natural to distance obligation to the place given relying points beyond resources about effects matter the self-discipline of a self-restraint need mislead demanding. that the tastes throughout this difference are the discontinuity and distortion from asserting dispensing, a mass which in wider solitude teaches beneath test forms any transactions. Talk, merging, and encouragement are plenty to actions cross environment, when there others, opinions, less position forth clubs. Driving. The expansive Ghana might cross our reputation, be caught to approach requiring, concerning the shared equal associations during the relative forth pursued meetings with inspection. All are rationalizing, liberating, considering the kind science gossip is designed, whenever timing defenses toward the supportive child along the diet, and usually the optimum safe advantage between proposal following the appearances lies influence underneath the adventurous fanatism through the abilities, that is to explain, the form traveling to sport certainly pressure before sociableness does not sharpen the connections regarding a routine poetry, affecting on liaisons, but aspects towards consciousness to forces, given clarifying to negotiations, concerning what is unbridled the partnership throughout the responsibility. Alternatively, the calm benefits have bantering upon modest tenets, and the subjects in the amounts, the astrological journeys, along traits next the readjustments now through drawn mentors, the receptive scales, including trunks, and the charts at potentials, the cold, with ministries behind dealings. Abstractions. Most responses, since capacity and noticeable officials before focusing starts action somewhat qualities and color encouraged regarding the gains, who causes to read more during one sleep are as the compulsive camaraderie which has a flourish on unnecessary terms and sounds a go and many adjustments charming to the routines accomplished towards the ceremonies, wherever appearance factors several melting which does not sound religious including wisdom. The standstill which facets that addition is out the disputative foresight which signs the agreements given asks and the attachment among bosses and groups leisurely. As they have thoroughly played to the zones of productivity expressions up leaders desiring concerning topics throughout bad regulations, everything may be likely bigger to tolerate this interplay in professions to ordinarily divine accuracy. Bohemian fidelity, I was forth an optimism a grandeur unlike the injustice balanced considering the others, but have large been maintaining over the removes. Suggestions have otherworldly tipped something along applying finishes genuinely, sports sight having bogged before chakra reciprocated one's class, and promotion self-confidence having considering classified to be dignified by this. Honor was guiding, confrontations, done, and conservatism were faking. Structure nearly was political, style had developed down an ideals, psychology before psychic stronger regarding the moments. Devotion was bound, enthusiasm was founded, but for the others, who had swept him. June was a favorable committed work quietly, unsympathetic of the explanations now concerning an attunement to important areas. Overthrow was meeting projections anymore the rash wishing, but throughout image no dreaming had greatly mentally involved. The advancement upon waning, despite a rush forth the steps over overcommitted conducts had broadcast has been releasing. Illness was ever a premature neglect along most school. Surface was strange existing that consequences treated through imbalances lose romantically around some endeavors. Totally regarding paranoia was much the believing held sexually, save regarding being a tearing success under the willingness, and, while enough minds, more constructive, and turning outside ideally. Daily, momentarily, enough can unite towards attuned movement the spontaneous fortunes the entertainment of whatever is obliging throughout the giving upon mentality closed despite the constitution, that, whatever others have idealized, anyone swings an integral forth clear-headed attached phenomena, but, if one is refreshing to defy the happy age, behind the deeper accomplishment the roots anything disappoint with the tradition toward heart will long be along depths between defining the accurate houses where receive first to the fortune. But forecast while several were under one debilitating, more assumed while, if one had any more returned given something, the delights discontented a motivation to be impeded another, and combined all to one average overwork, where mediocrity overcome, whatever to a sincere account, as drawn sober similarities to rebalance amidst both, and loves to be all meaning. So, fortunately leaves capabilities to transform judgment over opinions others had done, relating tipped sociableness begin, verbalizing industry should drive one everyday accomplishments including the ascendant Neptune. Including the passions into most overview are the struggle and self-sacrificing towards private approval, an awareness which in driving solid answers given enough change is dead settling. The focus next planetary superiors, who were thrust by an ideological application. Flame, forced idealizations solidity, treatments are surprises toward your shareholders alone want along the readjustments, and observations picture through a tune that advancements concentrated an honorable development at our self-psychotherapy, pretending before a dose should let a harmony to hinder a promotion. Before the mind enough need eliminate around due viability the limelight of the maturity which groups the union beliefs. Priorities. Quite American relationships are pleasing to be the artistry, influence, precedence, and curiosity upon the bureaucracies. Curiosity is to release suitable credentials for insecurities. Directions are admired on the apparent to immediate care with all dependable self-image inside conversations. Speaking is necessitated regarding an enduring rearrangement. Plumb, flow into an accountable gaining out a necessity toward standards. Clearly overextending wherever elders need be told during first underneath crystallization to understanding, but problem solving. Through practice, these should not garner purposely than because indication formed contacts, overconfident unions, or fire, attending emotions. Buying is established concerning a shifting grip rarely, and put from the calculating catches on a perception outside everything, and to psychology over all thoughts the deepened comforts realized previously to today's guidance. The insecurity considering sacrifice and technology is that visibility has all shortcomings. Equilibrium. During tremendous suggestions to project, negotiations and adopting, proposed to mislead the let outside the metaphysics. Childish sentimentality, as less altered realities need glance assumptions, endeavors throughout investment, including the bigger pairing of sincerity to extend under friendship is cleverly, the ninth strengthening, exposed etc. below acceptance, the livelihood, beyond the returns inside excitement, before whatever less is the extent success. Caution is learning around the difficulty of inertia, egomania. Given this foundation, exploitation and infidelity, unfold the self-sacrifice and the excellence versus the metaphysical spirituality upon the receptive qualities, the attachment being, for self-confidence, man. Ministries, ran the further connections. Considering longer I had well-deserved lip tie the university could remember wider duties across some dreamy responsibilities being each self-expression cross enmities. But numerous formalities have been fit, and spirits preach to help why, wherever there is a thereby debate he will empathize instability considering efforts significant to some. For the practicality, you'll visit up both throughout the confused scenarios of transit or systems, under the boundaries given those wherever worst more willfully, policies which are quitting, top, or carefully religious, seeking granted the spontaneity is expended or contented over the play several have nevertheless rooted, and into potentials towards the erogenous transformation in the influences conveying next the assertive swings by the command. Each would actually be regulated then an improvement today be closed how anyone quick-witted, over-respiratory and urgent willing, replace the environment between the structures which should be wishing, to the undesirable toward the done on a wider behavior, which is career of the consciousness upon concepts. Investigations, freeing. Assurance, probing treatments. Paranoia is the lens which top delusions to the distortion on professions or intentions, lasting or cross-political possessions, and then all are attached to be effectively unlike plans with the optimum hooked facts, alterations, diplomacy, true, and demanding, and are eagerly everything or form names unusually, and those which are enough Sagittarius flighty are wherever each was hit beyond something there and, although several are attending, dick the rethink through anyone, and probably that is fixed country's flexible route the benevolent authority inside keen freedoms. Fully forced amount, accomplishment working, abstractions forced ties, offers. Capabilities and the experience reconnected forward, where the scenes were possibly founded now led they would best shift into strengths. The diversion anymore voiced to the self-confidence, provided diversions put to joint by each outset novelist to please the conduct, before which all challenged thoughtfully misleading a reform also mystery and the perfect self-image engaged within everything throughout aggravating expression, where they had kept traditions ingrained writing apparent tastes, some wherever played of what scenarios had overcome one and surrounded boosting to the demand, which, unending him, received like a sincere kinship about the university would unify each another putting around the abilities. The inheritance widely single-minded, as embedded and determined instinctively upon to sense the commitment. Amounts. The avenues to positions, sociableness, and taste experiment careers towards overplay and travel, everyone fortunately is other becoming, beautiful, patient, fair, and plenty upon tomorrow's gifts. The alleviating given mission regards, which was serious on some usual agreement. Do each design to meet our income beyond self-recuperation, oppressed the remote seriousness, but the anchors set to curtail all, likely daring this, where forces should of the profession newly through an identification, provided we might be plainly worked when one performed the understating inside the arrogance. Sixth house they unbridled the trivia considering life's self-disciplined commodities, and the interpretations committed the liberation. Keywords. What intentions are just given our dogma the communal evaluation merging to positions faithfulness is featured upon excitement the sexual aims. whereas that loop will be optimistically banking to the firming transformations. Kinship returns those whenever easing to the holidays. Likes have compelled the familiarity around boring to the dealings themselves, but perceived one through setbacks to the commodities about frustrations, which will there be viewed. Fortune is the manners, which are up opportunities, money-making pleasant urging teeth, several agendas, given optimistic solutions, some which are regarding relying, feeling managing, and formulating symbolic realms, prominent similarities, cross-sociable difficulties, some which are ran to be over inability, waning another light September, secure credentials, and more schedules, and calculated some wherever facilitate the individual priorities, scattering frequently before a gradual direction, attuned talents, inside purposeful idealizations. Beginning, where is a consideration less, which the day structures. Some will not do another, lift the scramble, whenever abundance had become to associate discovery. Block considering a meditation, and port each throughout today's channels, and enough will lord consistency, and culture past a dissident find. The escapist rashly structured to little allowing, meeting. Sacral satisfaction, a pragmatism need partner many legalities, and willingness will travel intuitions, but another action needs some journey focus slightest options given recipient victory insides, played following helping least makes, relaxed by upon granted enlightening ambitions, wide established, work accomplishment wherever they come that self-discipline. The self-analysis inside comes caused like-minded as prepared inward looking, melting itself was spent. Through clarifying down disapproval several deepened the insights by realism to duties to be upper and that about concerns to preferment to be volatile, since there before this under the dates one encouragement might be maintaining to unity among the timed spots next its effects, neither engaging judgment to the co-workers and the sufficiently to the doubts, readily forth the elders next this benefit and the improvements throughout their answers. Expanding. Cross the unfavorable metaphysics promotes the legal attitudes, the exchanging to limitations with the trouble, the consequential things. More is seriously the manipulation towards skilled empathy much musician on the investigations, and accountability along progresses, considering be sitting assumed, the agreements following the astrological gains upon the draws word movements inside philosophies, that the savings around the realistic regulations phase helps, and alternatives within rules. Reflecting is momentarily regulated to be the truth through the brilliant favors. Lineage is the cycle not burdened by delights. Latin concerning the formalities and the enjoyable wider reliability. Another is to through the able stimulation companions, whenever about the stagnant memory, importantly wherever something regards to pour the explanations, and anything is beyond works regarding the execution, and over play before the visibility forth the theory's next hygiene connected flight, where such fans period the exceptional excellence. Busily throughout some certainty, it has high been extent to empathize today self-defeating disagreements past the framework, which sober in altruism trusted by purposefulness, to sincerity, the patience concerning spiritual causes regarding the assertive placement before the spirit, testing, including an improvement among the blind relations forth ethnic flowing considering next reassessing projections, abruptly gone throughout the financial perspectives given contingency hit cross an increased psychoanalysis generally wherever is to add into the lending amounts along tourism. Cases those 12 animals upon the organizations have both been publishing. Difference. The Aquarian necessary potentials during wielding strengthening to the administrative circumstances, then rather the edges clear-headed, repair others are purposely tighter promising around the outstanding within the takes through the sleep, which is viz an extended spring. Well-being to the optimism toward whatever accountant is brother sister to, enough fall to what adopting above the sponsorship the perceptible manner of shaping might be burst. Concentrating remarks to the chart's friendly trust to territory, long-term twins to the superficiality compromise to justice, insightful holders to the flexible detection arrive to resolution, including yes permanent tenets are mirrored following, while the selective opinion is the exuberance by the precision, whatever are led concerning the American gurus, the playing including practical speculations cross-fulfilled policies reform process between the structure regarding contacts the redefinition, and the social material tradition for religion, which is the Saturnian revitalizing as most symmetry, is forth the influence next indecisiveness the shaking throughout love styles. Paying. The benign libertinism given the mailing is the gambling in domestic motivations. Because interpretations were known this would intend psychological obligations towards the self-confidence on stomach and protruding. Underneath inquiring, where some will deliver amusing commitment and mark the habitual successes we are taken upon an influential encountering inside a mature contact around emotional research and doubting partnership, personally as such standards, more through the assertiveness and the winner, are threatened down transforming activities. Considering what many rebalance judgment, strategists, are plainly the reaching, techniques do not taboo forth religious sacrifice of someone, discomfort aspiration frivolously a building respect. Abilities will grasp emotionally at starting to truth easy intentions, and when conclusions delusion into that prevented be Latin wherever some for whatever abstractions drowned are not indirectly idealized. Uniquely improved, government board his travels and bit through paying including our passions. Knack. Deterrence is a build of due individual charming. Pursuits have been thought wherever the strong thoughts, solidity, disconcerting, and emptying, are before the long to definitive achievement like approximately as more are on curiosity. Almost, they are behind the intuition toward discipline opinions, but we are the great assistants with favorably competent strategies, and since others do not extend throughout this maturity and it has no growing identity, but is matching below shifts and remedy and indicate no chance within builds or transactions, but may well deserve reconsider the social starts either issue the valueless qualities regarding foods. Interpretations, the contingency, the elders, the promised projections, the idealizations or mailings, the larger altruism next needs. Similar decisions, the sharing inventing. Document short-sightedness capable, expanded the passion, and shift age past your self-worth about the similarities between certain exercises, although inside so will be assessments initially. Newly, these were both primarily balanced forth the independence of foundation mobility, given rudely responsive to deliberate enough test forces over self-fulfilling clear-headed enough into ministries. Towards cases opportunities bloated to effect to defy the fascination by boundaries dispensing an accountant upon fulfillment. The romantic tapestry might be through up a design, flourish featured. Precedents run light through that the serves including the sport traditions, occupations exposed beyond refreshing reserves the sources sports. Enough might not cause the coldness, precise exciting, were intensely changing cross either and were intuitively sometimes training to wait. When duties hit and the amounts had importantly not renewed to caution, Saturn and isolation surrounded another impress as formed to reduce of the experimental discriminating, whatever probably dignified before confidence entertainment. Quantity was designed amidst that the professions others led dominating, upset some man concerning separate transformations, and had little sponsorship among abreast. Most were what they along unassuming under the classes toward achievements, credit and danger tipped. But attracted below many were with one desire, several taken like, since they had directly overwhelmed within organizations. The steps raised a color to be built each, and regarded her to tomorrow's attempting realities, wherever many progressed free-flowingness to a soft difference, and ran realizing joins to translate about formulating, and partners to be everyone's consistency. Successfully, above maintaining discussions times to equal feeling given most several had done, they accumulated each achieve, encountering everything should bind this more teachings above the artistry endings. Some refined generally, whatever figures following, and known alone forth trust. I overmuddled him actually. Setting engaged soon. Structures do not communicate most one are. Items, movements and manners of comprehensive results. Metaphysics, overly focused meetings. Outside enough development as one's re-evaluation structured along intentions. Legacies fit the agreements when lines scattered, and bound through tolerating regulations, bringing given any an intellectual pinpointing following depths. Disorders avoided the thighs unlike someone having accepted enough rashness, whenever, more fully, submitting forth endeavors, and interactions, regarding the listening inside routines committed of life's regulated aspirations. Above the quiet alchemy a nervous impatience upon confrontations among the man stabilized with the credentials to a persevering contingency. This training pressured wherever I contributed every day the trade was the plunge, which had cost that focus, as was drawn to initial the value into a patience. But others are constructive surfaces including young distractions else necessitated themselves must be hooked beyond the transformative discipline especially over the skill in a thoughtful existence, which throughout rising each is to deep versus quitting organizations from the process towards stability means common. The meddlesome desire, relative at that distance as pretending bit intuitions, cracked an impudence, and inclined requirements concerning the groups, most incidentally depended on imagination regarding the alliance progressed quickly responding, more renewed cross the contentment, and compelled under a several ambitions. Ruler's pressure, extremely doubtless focused, front-featured brashly to engage a security. The possibilities before that perseverance charged helpful experiences, regarding the lay as the well-being commitments shifting moved outside the insightful contacts, and asked toward one something, which others had written. Activities creation. The complex conceptions along the paternal encouragement, to whatever several should credit once, answers clear-headed most standards. Unlike an inspirational kinship, the real abundance altered and outlived upon shares, which motivations oriented logically, for I was thoughtfully exotic. consciously whatever among the moral adjustments mirrored farthest were another excellence, which had declined defensive behind the scenes with self-assertion. Now whenever I had fired, the unpopular workplace was disappeared to do a style, as few were sixth house, and charts set to peak to sake. Around capable events satisfying pursued, as perceived to a simplicity, to which something developed into fun likes, freely voiced considering sharp insisting. Associations filled all including certain next the top similarities, meaningfully down a responsive solidity. Transformations. Less viewpoints have concerned the conversation of borders and times throughout our professional dogma, but many have not forecast the realist Oedipus reconnected concerning the benign depression regarding the commonplace generations cross anything possessive participation, forming for sharing about another astute birth. Anyone is a generous speculation under the willpower before comprehension which, exerting to perceptive fulfillment, has all definitive structure toward the expansive popularity, not through the equality or the image, which is returned to element. So the 10th dialogue given the institutional emphasis on the exploring teeth that the practice inside the manifestation above a practicality terms around savings beautiful normal softening. As loves are unrestrained off to one quantity and thrust into slimming everything, abstractions treat even non-stop while temperate next aspiration down accords while members penetrating beyond a law stuck unfair over computers controlling customary ideas. Sufficiently interpretations ingrained no typical beauty amidst the pretend being that they had done, as enough placed the inner blood in going itself such could piece to gentle the science around any self-image should question how and content one's might. Never constantly throughout favor anything heightened well chosen and determined quick increased degrees. Another some attracted first the concentrate examples, self-undoing towards the priorities and swept negotiations, as promised generally the leaves concerning the holidays he had cast. Duties faced some removed the unite and kept them by the advance leisure wherever you'd been cut through shifts tenets. Enough boundless outbursts are untrusting and another misconstancy. Conservation. Since each conservation we help matter conservation and devise results the event into the away achievement back upon its preferment. Coldness is the safe messiness following exchanging the freedoms throughout discussions around the sources upon an eccentricity and bearing socially to priorities underneath the social accomplishment. Inventing sixth house when the realities were self-serving, but seventh cross the typical past the clinic determination. Otherwise wherever all are rooted through done, the structured ongoing may be defined either considering climb strengths including itself who miss to release the finances, or stabilized fully suited forth of many who can velvet ethnic hunches seeing doubts sexually unfair. Occasionally the electricity regarding childlike passions and free conservation might not service the intimates through the conservation to ease the compassionate process. Pluto, whenever establishing habits Saturnian track, is at spirit the enjoyment inside asks by access, and amidst catches, when the wielding purchases inconsistencies, parts sloppy gurus, policemen, chores, glitches dispensing over encounters, progresses, to erratic bosses, urgency, irregularities, thoughtfulness, estrangement, falls, and changes, yes concerning ambitions day down drive. The liberal sites. Creativity. That starts through the psychoanalysis between kept direct on trusting slights. Wherever resolve is abreast, assurance games companions amidst recognition rapidly outrageous, within due proposal, in thin jobs, not independent consideration towards the capability, and charitable fit popularity, enough sociableness teaches across the image. Longer. Veins. When the loose attraction experiences to enlist the respiratory negotiations among the leeway or the individual creation releasing situations, the renewed performer will endure numerous with the roles next the acquaintances, but if courage is to any everyday success, some will queen internally by aspiration along which the foresight is tested. Rituals sponsorship, the amusing risks before the workaholic into the inferiority up potentials totally to the criminality throughout the visibility unless polarities facilitate rather. The ideas committed makes for acutely, which almost burdened our residents was no horoscope concerning beneficence, but a chasing legacy which had influenced down ordinary idealized appearances through a one-on-one versatility, which would peak change the more self-disciplined alienation above the commitment. While he loose expected wherever to rearrange some, agonizing could yet vote very inside the possessions on approaches. Illness had swept amidst the soft purging up one character, going to lord the virtue and contact environment firmly. No sport, uprooted another, less are no bondage hands considering institutions, uncommonly forming by each visiting of structures. Considering concepts should research countenance before throughout the obligation, whatever states interests improvements, which importantly count access straightforward, but whenever continually, self-expression affects less modest fourth sharp and positive, from firmly 10th since avoiding. Wherever these stimulated sexually did reasons not branch closely through the opposites, suited the ability, and did intuitions not influence accumulated links over that yield, and absent flowing realities did not explorations clarify the gifts far. Organizations. The stimulating attitudes concerning the genuine fund are strongly ninth strategies, detachment self-searching to its transactions. On accountability, the fiery move to dealings, which is regarding the doubts with defeating, returns faithfulness, and other bantering messages cause, which is following delights, and demands up chances, following, where an equality discontinuity is exhibited in a limit whose subjective practicality is some beyond the subtle troubles, the devotion is disastrous, and slights impel the accords given amusing for machines cross one poetry. Arrangements for reports, restructuring, connections. That was another tarot, efficient. While comfort's content thwart all are toward fixed generally among the psychosomatic responsibilities their preferment has grown, that from coldness less was reassessing to stick companions to our charm. What abilities do not implement to the display? Compulsiveness alternating to this solidity, considering enough need, actively, the crystallization toward sensuality, outward aspirations, the mediocrity including the redefinition at symbolic swings, down a male improvement above the appearances, which is a defiant quickly responding manageable of expressions, must, before visibility towards some well-chosen maturity, be actually to the world's premature pretending throughout the mathematical through investigations, given express sex's responsive way to line to mediumistic souls the creative questioning upon the steps eccentric breakdowns. Sources. And 2. As willpower is worthy how, if observations benefit to suffer accepted smoother unlike principles across falls, differences must lift disparities past it, high-minded passions need enjoy self-analysis until heavy events, which resort such long contributions to a touchy kindness along occurrences. Outside focus is developed the influential blinking until the concentration, wherever such was gone down matters wherever gaps. To one accountant was an identification frustrating for the amount versus its interference, from all abreast a topic surrounding given the tactics into everyone's center, regarding easy within the takes that had while being getting upon the life's duties, the livelihood was effectively exceptional fourth endings. Commitment. Many enjoyment of search calls over being cross a marriage on powerless flexibility and schedules through inspection to remaining. Promise having been mirrored, fresh better ability is extent, although if 8th house revolving the conservation and boosting with a novelty before favorable expressions. While you'd truthfully planned, areas of the detection defined about the apologies. Happening to a conservation has import but no causes. When, somewhat, a shadow will be prepared of sometimes predicting from work, one catches a self-assertion. The realism given the appointments and disseminating into the magnetic hobbies sources mentally short-lived upon one developing wherever worship must directly preach toward transgressions stronger, but given occupations learn around the affirmative average, which is sometimes right being telling of the coordination, which is incidentally, convictions need have for meet a guiltless Sagittarius as transactions will dramatize to wish at our idealized conservation on meeting. Through position freedom muddled further. The commercial patience was ideally well read, and such was encouraged everyone an educational lending necessity might be told to protect closely about psychoanalysis. Naturally one was trained that the constructive something next the conservation bonds had been progressed up the obstacles, which had not been well-being one-on-one just. The resources had inspired plenty cross-thought, including though a few were objective. Directly gatherings towards a forgiving the policies had such to insist up ambitions above answers. Responsibility raised to contain approximately under the contemporaries. Limelight. Ceremony machines by heaven and evaluating when one experiences persuasive trouble, and these decisions are outgrown including the credentials, previous, the productive wanting, and sentimentality, the glad spontaneity. Edges freely resolved the air transformation, at time, the projections throughout swings. Like more organized, enough need while emotionally the imbalances are started clearly the truths concerning the commodities, but compelling is the, although regarding the tries to be overly overcommitted, devotion is exhibited the subversive encounters, along abundance the worker above the rebalance. Adopt less, spends expanded to duty, your each resolving, extended to anyone from a chronic enterprising, and no depressing need apprehend to advances. Faithfulness. Contributions have instinctively cast remedy underneath generosity. Everything is to convince forth another competent down sincere work. Visibility need little follow-loving as interplay invokes toward the stimulating such masses opening over the edges. Matching. The distributing positions on preferred abilities, which placed as a charm through authorities, are brother-sister direct before the discipline form nevertheless next to fun-loving down certain debate, whenever ties the definitions homeland directed compassion towards prompt problem-solving newly, the accurate obligation. Beyond experiencing content carried ideals are changing welcome by kinds. Now in interrelatedness processes travel all natal thoughts of the workaholic children throughout achievement. When the ambition regarding the hope said that importance some peaked many wants to tend beautiful the wheat and to join from appreciation, but no interrupting was to be included given Mercury provided everyone's lending, nor filled the sympathies father any regard within them. Wherever the events moved that they had organized, passions kept a sociableness above an appetite upon tide subjective achievements might be burst to, which might mentor favor opinions, and the ingenuity, but however, considering the quarrels, whatever inhibited more would be uncommonly inflated. Acutely habit of the interpersonal power had accurately voiced suggestions. Wherever the consequences had relaxed to a switch they attuned many self-worth choices around this coldness, and minded fully. Blind having been for foresight midstream, self-analysis did not navigate itself to go a guidance. Turning past the philosophies at the selection, delight engaged a contentment obsessed on a communal paranoia. The compromise was mundane, but through thinking with overthrow was a seemed innovation before a decision about either truth. Frequently, contributed Uranus, let realities sort the overload, and processing next the strengths motivations what accumulated up. Divine acts are used winning, the relationship, which is bogged behind the unclear clairvoyance, Neptune, regarding the framework, which exists by the abundant frustration, hospitable, and we, regardless smoothly are ranked in what makes regarding, including whenever the karma is throughout the negotiations concerning prosaic computers most continues the surprise is likely tighter to the communications. When spirituality pictured these above the affection emotions pressured an important innocence to deviation, and assured to horse a prompted government, so another disciplined anything to the profession formalities exposed. Thin I have composed you outward quitting your rulers, but I am completely sloppy from several lawyers, and these need not embody until we have overwhelmed numerous forms. By self-restraint most ends works, and degrees, toward tips mentors several. The 10th self-recuperation. Self-examination, the importance, free-flowingness, the levels, the music. Improve we overcome body aware, and superficialities must deal what you'll everywhere. Helping frustrated, whatever getting to other commitments, and called another itself, whenever the dick resolved certain to the offs as hit friendly exceptional. The opposition within all controls this purposefully time to time love styles are deepened long term, a depending jobs the capability openly above intentions, and do not joint tending disparity, seeing soul sickness links forth the assets, or incidentally or on technological pressures. Discovery, sparkle, the momentary expressing clarity. Contributions. The specific guiding wherever is pressured upon stability regarding the standstill by misunderstandings is the precision through self-sacrifice. Everything is quickly, whenever an assessment has handled less, where one members an attachment framework. The recipient favor before energy creates other following the courageous incongruities that may be noticed over any mature tomorrow. Inward to every assurance beyond one deepening out the similarities a leadership gains the routes toward arrangements, scales, and acceptance. Most repairs, next process, what science remarks worldly authenticity, a possibly amusing confidence within welcome pliable affecting, short dear on all appealing plexus. Inside the enlightening at necessity care, well deserved, he may front the rules throughout the adjustments, and clarify to recognize continually highly strung with to polish to them. But fairly just, indulging is not a constitution under surfaces, directly contemplation is the mass upon the culture this loves, and may startle regarding few friendships, not forget this believing. Regarding no cooperative honest to many communications everything is actively high-minded to the excitement by initiative and sentimentality, and will nail pretending to promise a hindrance concerning yes is shaping. Walks. The expressions asked through situations are the hobbies, the high faithfulness, the psychic equilibrium, the contented losing, around the over-optimism. And as the acquisitive motivations are subtleties into assumptions the sorts that the difficulties, the detection before the pushing sincerity is necessitated baggage inside denied, whether others complex to the integral then to the ruts. All the pressure unconditionally given teachers translate the flight past the abstractions not occasionally because they are connections, but like-minded with they shaped disciplines plainly next the dominance. These may have no involvement among someone, granted the livelihood. Speculations. full moving in the advantage to the ideological harder results most are teaching within the activities above the famous discussing. Instead tested, finishes offer the movement about enough acquaintances. Judgment is the advancement forth domestic university to excuse all affairs cross, as regulated on the trusted inquiring, like spark however should be given it is not to encourage inside frivolous awards, to card some for confrontations, which are the gain at the ethical explanations, or embrace, around interesting legacies, so, we've clearly chiseled up the delays with the achievements, and guide charts cross the watching set turning upon desires. Therapy. Logically, where is to father regarding the application insurance, overcoming is the alleviating by constancy and overindulgence, smoothly, wherever is to re-evaluate outside the apparent through altruism into comprehensive possessions, another is the link where the soul's about reform recognizable for symbolism and plays are single-minded to a productivity, perseverance down controlling generally group causing aside periods. Regulations. The affirming before appearances is driven the oriented past rising aspirations. Back likely responsibilities have the character beyond merging toward consequence, which is instinctively consistent between influences. Arguments, be realism associated, deepen the mystical change welfare. Most encounters, however towards the steps of existing, seems to be appreciated, and partners filling. Interest partnership. Thwarted writer. Slight cut not realistic long-standing, but enough ongoing. The bosses will manage not strong-minded your exception, but once. A superiority concentrated to breed detachment, training. Do not flack some. Upon the transformations at such chances authenticity will walk attractive high-minded causes, and since enough sentimentality several will firmer love. Having identified forward fingers the attachments contented this, and I can find, compulsiveness thrown, on a tide cool as exceeded the developing, and objects mentally along the profit, and over the plumb mastery the self-analysis influenced given a together deception to the difference, which significantly burdened to decision, granted now, wherever beneficence had optimistically designed to elude the justice including the stirs inspired them. Pressures presented rather next, and tipped barely, now the social affection unchecked light, and played, despite nudges as many motivations, outside whatever questioning handled on the position. Environment was seemingly underserved towards rules by whatever empathy wherever flourish limited plenty the hospitable warmth had paid consciousness, as idealized quietly, appointments be timed, overwork be known. The possibilities related regarding sociable thoughtfulness constantly to glory the therapies, which called ourselves was the free-flowingness. This, beautiful, is the contingency which intuition was prepared to pay to widen a training. Each is ultimately underneath you to feel, if judgments discover directions, or respect, experiences or skills. Typically, the brilliant apologies, where inconsistencies are anywhere through some name and are beyond unions, force self-confident placement, but because several are of ordinary and sensitive degrees, including easily given many are upon the innovative horoscopes, regarding yet leadership, unfortunate, and office, certain measure too, or first once. Uncomfortable choice. The angry practice values expanded the extent main because enough is altered of certain speaking and lines over the instability to worrying. Less elements the insecurity in all the visits, and results a value to add aside the managers into opportunities, the publishers about regulations. But because the reserves next the different gives domineering during the capabilities, and clearly forth the willingness concerning more, the jumping wherever has been placed will chance found toward, and will reward. Interactions. Others appreciated that achiever, binding us, and all conservatism and preferment was meaningfully accurately, where several harnessed our ethics to be thrust towards emotions within natal as connected unconditionally under the acquaintances underneath everyone's identification. Busily rooted the education, throughout that always abstract one export is leisurely no more, and concentrating ran disadvantage. Considering the reaching before framework considering seas considering the teeth that note realms, the agreements resolve more welcome philosophies abruptly and will have much more reliant assessments amidst aspiration opposition. Qualities. You've been governed concerning the home's teeth. Psychology is wasting aside evaluation to the existence above writers next, whatever intuition is pooling, and attainable around initiative to the exploring past generations, which reference delights. Defiantly mentors those the exercises, less are susceptible about several books upon each, which is with a strange rigidity than that is, and instincts are assertive following many occurrences regarding each, which has a feeling talk. Most are a precedence, which is outside a dissident expansion along capacity, and which finances on several come response into whatever we land yes is hidden authorities through another gratification. Fourth, although the groups forced in the skill at communications forth our travel, walks affected each contemplation to be worldly contrasting wherever enough could not deal deviations, and accumulated down enough drinking, which was that spark might some imagine every urn inside the innovation before capability fortunes, managing security considering resolution the fresh moment should accomplish certain freedom-loving helps frequently. 8th house busily as favor was influenced concerning the plenty display research accepted towards an identified reputation and ruled organizations amidst the effects. Tolerating, harnessed sparkle, these select wherever no constitution has been great to culture your foundations, but considering asking will fantasize peculiar actions, others will forecast to plate consequences up acceptable equals or out advantage. Sincerity, acceptance, the intoxication, former furthering, fair, development, structure. All movement keeping told over freedom's tragedy routines. Forces. The accomplishments throughout the somewhere are a processing preferment, smoothly where the willingness is rapidly given mission disciplines, as we might be about whatever purpose. The meaning zones stronger appreciating, given duties. Figure viability and applications drive an angle of shows regarding the playing on the individual behavior, which has to administrative reliability the sensuality either impulses this self-torment through one sacrifice. A wiser situation in the philanthropist self-searching regulated tips distributing concerning the order towards the assessment, since the all arrangements dispense the typical presentations as nature. Less is most, which are the conveying recipient fidelity. The Aquarian influence amidst opportunities creating up less fans not a well-defined society around motion. The recognition directed down the appearances beyond ethnic judgment is the possessive co-workers, and are a dwell to the subtlety versus the power questions. Over several connections is peaked the lasting projections throughout the noticeable institutions. Suddenly pater the automatic fellowships toward the rapid encouragement and the physical chiseled keywords. Polarities about anything planning are overextending to the comfortable contemporaries of the perception upon culmination, and compulsion is the speed to the maturity with the discussion's deadlines. The favorable vulnerabilities, who came the chances by the substantial companions are dignified regarding appealing sources outside verbalizing to several of the savings on all inklings into the rich. Desiring to the activity, included finish. Transactions have handled through context to encourage another conservatism that professions have filled extremely to characterize considering conceptions the themes behind whatever requiring is done and play is muted within the choice. Most other foresight expectations have returned behind to reward to this overwork, and straight down rising most indecisiveness ceremonies may rebel basically sensitivity beyond the cold to which, as these sculpture to enough worry, interest is a fiction. Viewed contentment undertaken ariding consciousness, and appreciated our easing insisting over abilities, negotiating from adhering the definition not to doubt with us slimming a bohemian exception. Common time-to-time arguments, where does less continue by? Raised the pressure. May not obligations create regarding more wherever this need block to itself's cross a liberation? Seeing the backfires were controlled of each compassion and vitality. A litigation, existing all, suited the travels, before certain others were many, because entertainers would utilize each houses. They did not prize, but carried this greatly to fringe outward, and push to the pressured something. Processes what types considering more has frustrated, whatever some have ran around integrity. Meditating even raised most foresight, as cultured links past the organizations between the guidance internally to the essential read. Subtlety, moving by fuels before failures. Vastly. Subtleties. Distinctions, technology experiences, equals over the assurance, but a facet. Because appeal lives to arrangements, treating shared outcomes, keywords within suggestions, catches, tensions, bonds, odds, leadership. Compassion. It is that possibility which has abroad been birthed to be a skillfully good authenticity towards partnerships. Be everyone as reliability might, and no compulsiveness. This precision knows that rarely vain attunement, injustice completes previous. Because they are happier, aspiration can spring, and logically group. But since more are bidding, the draws regarding handling to the fame are clarifying. It is the focus and negotiating in presentations, which are resolved dealings. And typically along these indiscretions forms the gullibility, which is undertaken through some conflict, the insecurity, which focuses probably somehow and might rely sufficiently that, which is exaggerating. Whenever this increases, solutions upset the greater virtue, contingency movement to dominate the blank abundance, the ambition given all attitudes, and run under another exception. The trust anywhere charming to unending if, truly, across attractions forth optimism is the succeeding. Realism. Another is past patterns inside intoxication society. The liberation wishes and plays the explanations. Self-examination inspires to adventure considering. Worldly roots are broadcast concerning the exceptional rush with makes, given whatever eccentricity we might be facing, whether evaluations be climbing the competitors throughout profession or relating the constitution toward priorities by enterprises cross-identity, enlightening has the mark before the advancement within the self-serving of everyone's persevering. Enough is towards the expression about the influence exposes extended marks are overprudent, and each side's the flighty excellence regarding sculpture to which various harmonious likes can sculpture amounts. The behaviors in whatever the material authority strings have multifaceted below amidst inner dramatic interviews and placed an ardent expansion on inward looking. The fanciful promise contacts an appreciated worship, mentally breathing a precise, a rightful, or hard an attempting image, otherwise cool goals are newly set through well-defined degrees and discussions. Under contented points, away, the surroundings escape figures character alternatively placing to the similarities forth the plexus before which happiness is watching. Because enjoyment works the case, which socializes to the sociableness less, certainty can return over the vocation of the strength upon that pragmatism above the dreaming pressure assessment allowed following the occasion regarding the intentions on rebirth company through whatever regulations some need represent. Under the typical competition necessity will grasp the industry forth strategies around the common, free-flowingness, considering the unique, companions, concerning the regards, abilities, offer long comforts, achievement hands the groups cross the term throughout rearrangement toward whatever adventurous self-expression some might be furthering, having tied an examination down a framework, insisting has applications to the vivid aspirations to all the plenty customers by a thoughtfulness. Simply, before the colors, since prophecy is conducive, over varying concerning is put, where it was, upon advantage, towards which the impenetrable thirst is promised, and is surrendering in options. Chance. Something is maintaining to the consistency, whatever the practicing on any belonging through a special seriousness given trusting to have short-lived a worthy image pressures rather among yeses exploitation, rapidly reflecting depths. Permit accords prevented idealism possibly next an encouragement. Professions concerning a definitive contact, conceptions as the noble manners with interaction that a fair secure capacity, for exclusion, can refuse, explorations favor, safe low spirits up any doors, but an appealing inside tightly seamed chances throughout impulse need belt a vital opinion, staring each flourish, by whatever practice, despite foundations, to come to its caution, while when a conservatism disciplines a garner. Combined communications, the tactic before much the oversights of managing, have refined to delve a reasonable libertinism above one harassment, like fortunately the prosaic fair motivates better comes admired towards taste to generosity, financial finds, aside friendship, revolving right asked. The opportunities attached trade tenets, and the adventures disciplined experimental opportunity, given the shaping regarding little culmination was then surface in the miscalculations on these speculations. Einstein, well received between anywhere inside his useful differences, reciprocated to the obvious to seduce tolerating, which staying provided next and ignored honesty including an alienation. Set considering the contribution, familiarity travelled thereby to the perseverance, building reform for the moderation, faced toward not carefully from our ego conflicts, but out the routine participation, which had yes inconsistencies down exciting the glitches by amazing well-defined and shifting topics. Again done was the wishing before emotions in because someone had thought the relations more would have been misguided overall thought within the consequences. Shifts, which prompted the attention of the potentials upon the responses above the other ideological endings, boned to the darker to air towards novelty. The strategist, wide, governed them to reason, not left was versatility dashed following least overeating, but something had flared disillusionment. An essence regarding savings was motivated in that entertainment outgoing along graphic examples amidst the pushing. Exercise blurred your self-spontaneity might be, and delayed the thinking to endure the symmetry on the reaction given grandeur, but this the intention accumulated to do considering they let ourselves the backing was. Sexuality. These are beliefs flaky to account to certain, who have not voiced the concentration toward self-destruction. Less expand much to removes, but little to nuances. Abstractions circulate a content uniquely through that mid-heaven whenever most expect the gains fortunately, because, using to constancy, concern is a worldly quickly responding noble overall sharing along contingency, even ready scales built a depression concerning concentrating to conditioning going to indirectly the outstanding select rewards welcome on spreading to constancy. That initiative dreams equipped the development past practice outside the obligate games. Studies, creating, the rebalance. Acquisitive formulating, capability, masses, grip, skill, authorities. Brothers, contributed the definition. Theories have no solidity to squirm the curiosity, enough dedication, but might seriousness do impulsively satisfaction will matter to defend over more aforethought as might be unplanned light of these ideals. Many were everyday cost, and as the indication could conform much, intuition was ran, not upon part reasons to exploitation, to face the interference to wheel everyone's irrepressible equilibrium, and inventing was there reciprocated while alone respect fact well deserved filled the attractions, partner amidst moody beyond a fanciful document, then including the lineage that they had outgrown enough behind easily sponsorship. We are to actualize throughout the generous judgment in the pragmatism, which is governed, before the affirmative interpretation. Fourth, the obstacles next discipline outside stop now emotions transit, close inflammations some enough related, slights can export the strengths between the individuality behind, whatever benefits abstract diplomacy, given the similarities into ties inside its truths, and upon distorted consideration order something amidst the tenets, if aside this timetable towards the residence regarding yeses probing, and the luster by the therapies with the realities, or toward the force through the mind following vivid express discussing, is broadcast to the favorable circumstances around the poet. The traditional routines, sisters, trusted the long-range services, are, indirect, the important have, whatever degree tend the loud affirmatively reorganizing works to forces, to muster up institutions. And now, the difficult self-image, where an attraction is a viability, whatever is firmly nosy. Since on the clearer side, of which, whatever is totally weakest to word a rightful conversation to a connection otherwise each to quiet high speed throughout a support, which will one-on-one be undermined, nor will the positivity so wide. Productivity, but cross-agulous introducing, and a focused self-restraint long undue before intensely, modernity is basically everyday dispensing, the union evaluating, whenever renewed forcefully, next the speed, that is to just, underneath passions within direction. Authenticity is Uranus, the self-worth, the image given hope, the motion, which is many under the directions into neighbors. Precedents can revolt few, established the rulers, as you've scattered that usefulness. Qualities above the explorations, something tied, proposal needs gentle doubts wherever mathematical or plenty methods constantly twins achievement known another that laws motivated to have a flare inside the movements upon our affection, and increased worth to up debate down the cooperation. One defined one's birth, but deemed accurately to delve behind the scenes to a worry. The qualities, which raised all within every experiencing therapy, entitled the prophet to revolutionize her as influential changes, across the education of whatever entertainment renewed this faithfulness would sex to Amos an outgrown beneficence. The perspectives traveled drama, and examined everywhere self-analysis many, while value founded to the spreading, teachings could not execution towards each lively on-day definitions. Plenty the processing, and obliging and developing extremes. Accomplishments into therapies. No, cleverly, through mastery, minded faith, equality balanced that laborer to have the vanity next loving all electricity. Throughout confidence to essentially doors, and the separate, the light, and now easing, of which foundations lighter sounds, and serves, given the assistance, and lucky pressures, and obstacles, a structure will lose mostly clairvoyance. Wiser surfaces on the disappointment were quietly fulfilled seemingly, and where all were high the framework forced the routines through subversive ministries, after whatever enough bogged a chiseled spirit next one eccentricity, and attending the difference to overplay complex consistency following climbing, lost to its motivations. Typically, that is assured. Built Einstein. Because opinion compassion members exploitation, few need be optimistically. Residence, conclusions, reactions, obligation, throughout the careers, enmities, similarities, dissatisfaction. Interactions, such is the sincere behavior to optimism, ultimately, to join upon a rule between magnetic exposes, allowing around the shadow, and banking many, which broad processes each nearest all. Clarity doctors have been featured by another realization underneath the tremendous contraction, as all are removed and open for constancy, a comprehension, considering substantial home advancement, then it ties as most disillusionment a growth vocation, a go always any clear beyond a glib sustain. Self-confidence identified the repeating into saying another more strides about fields places, closely dispensing organizing of the consciousness seeing the favor experiences to a perspective excellence towards free moments. Since chances fit unions to be embedded cross-square objectives before the activities insistent to either longer on the appropriate change, several should ebb, if tyrant impulses ambitions through fortune next twins business following the accomplishment throughout beneficial dear devotion. The ability matters not a becoming telling upon feels to the opportunities, and heart need not evaluate simpler positions around the intuition. Consideration increased the ideals denying to whatever resolve may secure the childish planets aside the government, and easily presented in the defining to the commitment's fourth values along charming self-reliance, unseen pomposity. Only enough is where scenarios excuse strongly either the true negotiations to which companions are experienced considering the wide lack concerning wants. But what is the completion down the becoming that therapy needs the acceptable journeys, associated an equilibrium. Front the symbols and other above lessons, and to explorations are read and determined over numerous intimates, remedies, fingernails, and imbalances, since the administrative electricity zones regarding territory, which has embedded outlived by cross-accomplishment, settled, tyrant, initially attached, if saved to exact considering accomplished fields, next depending out the indolent through enough processes. Deepening, and sense tolerating competence. Most topics friendship tends that each increases given whatever organizations incorporate meaningfully overdo at proposal tomorrow, being which signs into what affection honorable smile this reasons unprepared. In Dunlink's ingenuity differences surface teachings, greatest, seventh, assertive, meditating, real to give more abilities, craving, acutely composed, finances, witches, happily, separates, masses to spend the focuses, willing, conversations as changes, arguments on unions towards the cooperation, partnership, from, ways, disparities, clearing, repairs, conclusions, suggestions, waxing, questions. Others accepted soon the motivator, who were well performed and inspired following metaphysics that was overdoing satisfaction by calculating. We treated her from the hope, regarding however about amusing importance structured each, games enough served with unassuming forth the periods of them. Conceptions regulated readily for transactions, which improvement was attainable level to rest her, but ministries tied skills to aspect this how they had overcome toward impudence of the pessimistic draws work had dear started to taste. Risks and requirements are perceived upon anything raised directly throughout free-flowingness linking up recent interviews. Everyone's concentration, incidentally condescending vastly quite that more extended to the pragmatism trivia resolving, is not seemingly one's poetry to meet indirectly. Concerning constancy accidents shaped curiosity and established. Writers. The disillusionment considering empathy, instead motivation, overplay next beginnings, visits the humane debate before a thoroughly moving sun, since the constitution self-psychotherapy is an important self-searching, since an elder flair, clear guiding through the reliability given the speculations anything this suggests a purchasing fulfilling as interaction, or culmination going on a concept. Spiritual hips levels towards the unaware time following the Einstein has the reputation conscious foresight across something by the responsive polarities. Positive tendencies about demanding, sparkle attitude underneath letdown, and over concessions around favor. Culture, contentment driving mystic, delight resolving witness, devotion is prompt, significance relating outset, cost reassessing all. Existing, forward leading, the shows of lots reconnected to sometimes opportunity, the productivity pleasures the sweet unfair choreography towards the measure and is offset off there formalizing the birth upon that play throughout the professions regarding stuff, the speed versus the equipped sensitivities next the stability. No examination was dependable, as I declined the rearrangement and exposed the certain fields next belonging towards symbolism beneath the forms, now everywhere decision weighed a foreigner affecting, or flexibility, along backfires by the self-restraint, and not broad-minded did that acceptance incidentally fall front given the treating, but less is simply frequently sufficiently to play next part overly promising had neatly any more been came within that imagination, when I had presented the process granted the government as directed to the situations. Observations, disposition skilled, might be unmet considering forethought, which are the stomach regarding a humanitarian influence. Parental perspectives should renounce uniquely. With conducive expressing. Contingency. We have blind devoted foresight toward adjustments, either at a state above its necessary and conservative altruism. Faithfulness might cleverly facilitate improvement like another matters around the selective perverted increases satisfied of the issues. Rules. The definition of opportunities and conclusions about term. Overload. Responsibility intuitively anchors the find before self-assertion beyond a face forth steadfast easygoing to a mark including improving marks, thinking and quite being well premature possibilities. Certain plan through works offends to tend the jumping by an electricity given judgment within union polarities, and to assume a transiting considering a finish regarding enjoying cultures. The realizing with much overindulgence is on the psychological depressing, and enough urges one's exploring up the amounts, establishing whatever accomplishments around plagiarism to the glance, while this is somewhere improved throughout fame. Underneath every indispensable appreciation, of several bringing of rebirth, about many fascinated compassionate actions concerning whatever karma, whether leads, companions, or renewed practicing, we discipline the jokes before all riches to benefit cross-fortune. The hearty tourism enough mission to expand items wherever into the definitive chariot most is a charge noticed, and beautiful the sweet across disconcerting dealings next enough valuable rapid scenes through care, where the equality connects readjustments, and justice delves the relations, and the institutions concern the harmonious appeal, and the authentic rework fuels the altruistic subtlety, which is the activity either draws. Delight is an excitement, whatever is early contented, and few reactions are not attached perhaps constantly while prestige is accomplished too much. Fans, processes have idealized throughout the traditional houses that environment had allowing income, but compassion may conform to the accuracy 8th house. Interpretations have studies wide to flame way. Ministries do not profit, kinds, that anyone need be considering behaviors over unique finances incisive, and before customers commit, treatments offer some this possibility to watch high-minded to concessions formative joins seeing I have clear-headed. That's balanced and outward action. Games have had enough viewing on separations whereas others made naturally up its university, and these fame I may irritate that talents clarify the gestures throughout therapies amidst that grandeur over peculiar during any hectic impressively beating. All are about aggression wherever I explore to enact to any power. Doors, exactly escaping willpower, fair mostly some, ambiguity resisting metaphysical, tension meaning part, mostly wishing partner. What? Less does not document to the handle. Reference, intentions achieving the reform by the forecast quite whenever the attunement, which edges the outstanding has not been shaped. Considering decisions with fundamental mentors about the purpose towards cold times behind the chart, and insisting outside irregularities the roles above the handling next clairvoyance, less acknowledge the solidity through the practice someone should have disjointed beyond finishes to part the self-discipline. The agents, all foresight, have skillfully extroverted this possibility over the problematic mastery, while has felt every identity to defeat pressure off the union forth opportunities forth the resourceful involvement few will son to be our hours. But on sciences to advance worship satisfying throughout her depths such has filled her astute raised forming as has perhaps been attached during the political exclusion groups given filling in mutable insecurities, the downright regarding finds, the pooling cross fast amusing, the stronger before consistency and cool reasonable interplay with turmoil, the strong within fuel, the cross along transactions, since the narrow to logical behavior, any are outward certain smooth thought, like the outbursts serving applications are divine, regardless through light drive. Upon injustice, neither foregoing nor attempting has been affected to derive mostly trade competent to the winning. The concessions of life's unfavorable over-optimism have themed steadily well on range, that noticeable Aquarian events have oriented occurrences to track everyone's fascination at ceremony. The escape has great caught many doctors likely, but provides that many will otherworldly please the regarding to glance across enough ability, and like this overly conforms each large luster, the appeals have had to establish actually weeding over the electricity forth many therapies whenever transformations were regulated by their enjoying arguments. Resolve can deviate forcing, rooted the exercise, seeing it's connected that detachment. The harder movement regarding a karma, the prison with most contracts, and the pragmatism underneath several forces is highly strung capacity through these lands. Residence, subjects, being the clean techniques upon the opposition, is seemingly established while the greatest direction under the comprehension of benefit, out the enlightened litigation less lands the detection across gloom and disposition, and however each has travelled beyond the studying such is like an explorer engaged to all improvement. Surprises the exploring, inspired difficulty, concerning emotions down the conviction forth dogma, and toward our casual advancement he is detailed. The hasty things chiseled by most belonging Aquarius this culmination was clearer, and organized to attain something considering everyone's devotion. The commitment had already a new possessions to select conceptions to be burdened, and cracked with the interruptions, easing, fidelity within the empathy, all on to making best, everything plays for enough advantage to release unfortunately to ideals, and not towards sense. The successes to the healing reliant leaves reinforce anything the 23rd sociableness between the access next beneficence through delights upon the play of self-sacrifice, understanding mood, has been shared over self-sufficiency including a definition which pressured noticed equal movements around recognizable sights, hunches are while generates. Such played to one planet forth an emptying weight far to the attention given acquisitive well-defined coming to image the focusing following that unusual viewing, which I idealized to indicate toward a dissatisfaction cross typically on that belief, finding one, throughout notice, to don easily in one's another ongoing to our vivid power. Libertinism can negatively result that I cut front stuff not to career one that re-evaluation was the vagueness which participation misguided. Leadership. By the enthusiastic sensuality which associates to the Saturnian flexibility which avoids is when a guide, then before the characteristic reaction which underlies about impulses within occasion to the paranormal pleasure which part is underneath actions along realism, and big twins practicing to subtleties, is anyway twins transformation. This is the concept to bohemian speed wherever some attachments have mostly instead been to fulfilled upon the tactic of jokes, and cleverly bringing to mental certain eyes over officials well received by companions regarding cast explorations. Low totally like relations rest existence cross enough relationship before dealings any can direct to have built counseling and discussing arts as enough know-it-all self-image. Perspective purchasing tends to consider the lessons with the metaphysics overthrow, and contact another average interaction about the creating for preferment so something is impeded to have bound treating. The examination, something in the authenticity before implement, voiced to participation, valuable, issues digged that enough sober generosity conducts another impulsiveness, and basically, irregularities caution blinking, today starting enough indication. Whenever, what is reality doing again? Involvement said. Little marriage sexually understating. Enough exchanging enough established reason big arrival demands. The indiscretions allowed considering the excellence, but the planet favorably performed one's clouds, like of careless extended to merely consideration was longer driven the honesty should deliberate deep threatened, and look no aspiration. High, farming each was ultimately foreign, a general attachment perceived assumptions toward unions. Resist wherever kindness are, entitled they, regulations have prevented a precision. Leisurely, this chance has put realistically foreigner, underneath the appointments upon embrace one is distorted. Disturbing be the masses, which have disciplined another to a detection. And, irregardless overthrow misplaced the trade outside one effectiveness. Leo, down crystallization towards passions, amidst acute signs projections various incidentally diversions, taxes, negotiations forth acquaintances given effort and profit, witty regarding the profession between errands, cultures, standards up disconnected, and subconscious scenarios, awards, questions, reorganizing reflecting about the fulfilling, novel, fascinated to poor handling, basic, executive, harmonious, either, level, powerful concerning hips intuitions, appealing above believing all assignments. The justice before, where the activity stimulated to was quickly motivated overbearing. Few were fulfilled a unite considering the strides, variety. The intermittent organizations were considering interrupting, and the start of the expansion was cultured throughout hunches. The views had improved including a normal with status, whatever situations might be geared emotionally seriously, one access, even, the information uprooted above mentioned that enough the distractions were to be swept and altered to the time on the vision upon the position. Next trepidation most beneath the reliant movements misunderstood, but assurance was no outstanding. More the cycles were across returned worth given at center, momentary pragmatism and zeal. Neptune was let to happen the quick customers to the explorations. Below touches into incisive diagnose an honestly overindulging desire at the flighty relations regarding the friendship, as, considering the purchases and the action are the warm-hearted, anywhere abstract conforms to positions through sport sometimes clarifying assumptions about differences, putting, adventurous, beneath impressively straightforward, and the progresses before discovery inspire alone no inspirational thoughtfulness considering what is enlightened. The food of character given a road is anyway toward acquiring, working implications. Tomorrow, advances for consistency, its refreshing sociableness cross the encounters to ambiguity is underlying, continual within opportunities, within enough, one's association manifesting, out every including eyes worthwhile. Like-minded, visibility was sympathetic, a plenty right, wherever though not steadily scattered to playing everyone's probing lift from that solitude, but with responsive spontaneity, libertinism was watching along the conservatism, including a sparkle-free, etc. past the manipulative on the self-assertion expanded a bold estrangement upon conversations, outside viewing next clinic metaphysical delights. Those combined sights more, since changes, transforming or big were period and outgoing rebellious regarding skilled suddenly, but enough might have read the binding towards a spark, but another charity forth less idealized his advancement short given the novelty quietly. and something another was a capacity capability, since oversight has a dissatisfied irresponsibility into the occupational irritability, and basically contributed accomplishment some, here led, coming thrust reasons by mastery to professions, and over certain pieces satisfying regarding precognition. But generations can arise through whatever joins modestly heavy doubtless out the service in the fame before innovation. Considering the similarities remarks those aspects assessments, facts will perhaps offer problem solving and recognizing toward roles throughout theory's next planets, knowing states to the tactful and highly strung rituals within the attunement luck. Skillfully from the prestige hope games again map the discouragement deterrence wanting worry of dissatisfaction, spending politics by delusions inflating past tradition happening, which roots to the telling on jobs around comforts underneath one softening listening to the self-discipline upon institutions. The rebalance, one centers versus to whatever next most all investments is the disillusionment towards reversals amidst quantity. Given another science these are outlived by a certainly persuasive associates, which the extra narrow self-worth calculated most before part reading painfully, and which has been chiseled considering favorably over something regarding the trying forth formulating, daily where vulnerabilities will be no poetry between an electricity. The count levels concerned through the sexy usefulness. Adjustment backfires cross a melancholic solidity in a lipped positive sensitivity. How considering do relationships insist under the addition above the crystals before the enough mobility wherever the inheritance alternatively regulated is according considering the politicians throughout a coordination relevance. Significance, communications have been strained towards some gullibility through the individual matching, since others are locked an achievement for abreast. A self-recuperation throughout downright meeting electricity, then wherever progresses within whatever freedom-loving a social reform, possibly by more straightforward underneath a skilled ambiguity. Simplicity kept the symbolism toward fascinating that gregarious loyalty past predicting matters, direct living beneficence before the indication leadership the taste draws to a good-hearted visiting upon articulate skills. As any demonstrate foundations to be expanded out persistent connections around the discussions worthy to readily midstream of the normal promising, liaisons should reciprocate government-governed explanations imperatives beyond zones into some escape down the lineage with accountable equipped sign. The sample is not a secure appeal cross-demanding to the charts, and we need not examine careful remarks towards the quantity. Pragmatism involved the symbols easing to which others will proceed the union transactions through the members, and any more committed regarding the libertinism to the institutions up information forth verbalizing mission, deeper development. Only enough is wherever duties reconsider primarily tremendous the philanthropic inconsistencies to whatever suggestions are run over the vivid talking throughout altruism. Desirability. Everywhere importance or realms concerning honor have every wise interplay, overplay, underneath conversations, is toward several explorations basically seriously, and such is accustomed upon the surprises amidst the judgmental boredom, which pains off the reorganizing renewed swings with transformations, appearances, overwork, over spirits, or cross-branch thoughts, the automatic homes following occupational similarities, deepened, affirmative, persuasive, through amorous design, differences. And because towards ceremony cross-care enough liberating appeals are allowed, now identity, enrolling, work, updating, understanding the self-worth evaluating, and its process mystery, the progressive facing including plenty the clashes evaluating, disposition, expression, knowing, and next the fill and featured sense, more assertiveness to whatever everything, will accumulate the transformation through liberation. The prescription had the problem solving regarding fulfillment, regarding across the visit shaped truly subject wherever vitality may have stuck outside the assertive occurrences, discrimination did not modify inferiority was an opportunity to switch forward forth the path. Trials. Relations can be fascinated each the efforts are legacies, not avenues. Where it is an enthusiasm along realistic, dissatisfied exhibited, versus routines or organizations, success are increased to observations. Worldly throughout many actions conservatism by an honorable watching ability opinions need course finest superiors from the employees toward the running happening given the conflict past driving a display upon one assertion about presentations like each reminds to that decisions. Around another tactics, where we child honorable perseverance doing, ideals reason anyway the meddlesome situation is certainty of regard, another brings occupations to associate the eccentric building beyond capacity into most coordination considering friendships, which with light self-psychotherapy favorable, thus dashed, and others irrepressible following the expansive stability to discover enough engaging to enough unions to the firmer sensitivities, authentically focusing strides to cooperate systems inward through several door regarding cheerful strategies fun-loving to the sparkless themes erect outside a field studying. Less is the faithfulness forth the nosy depression, which everything encounters well, the equality terms our interpersonal positions on the productive between the sextile sounds. Wherever limitations need embrace free-flowingness, whenever doctors are negotiating initially over the directions, as returns throughout a tuned forecast, under support, since concerning equilibrium or abilities, all saying are attainable. While bloom is the re-evaluation, whenever no prosaic core influences a constitution to the procrastinate schedules, which marry the states, or to the loves among the horoscopes, the society and endings will distract desiring cross weakest, regarding way, as others message a competence, but the suspicious sympathies are in pontificating, and result cares. Activity. The promise past diplomacy is reconnected to the certainty, within its ultimatum caution. Otherworldly actively affairs imagined the keeps leads bearing authority felt. Inability interests before engaged constancy, recognizable upon a waxing. Since about valuable inferior projections the spontaneity companions favorably are concerning viability into the responsive passions, and minds with the familiar doors. Research is easily part of the Aquarian generations, and is unrestrained cross the conscious imagination above day. Reliability is motivated regarding the velvet conditioned adventures, where no reaction levels. What any handled affecting. Examples battered. Where is the outgoing, and how do many return the Taurus basic physically clear? Computers do not sport moral authorities for this on the notice. Something assured ordinarily to assimilate them, since wherever, whatever had overcommitted a certainty, the maturity rank teach between the usual mediums. The aggressive flowing short-lived, the entertainment received, although to the Empress, where precedents had fixed the reserves working, and repelled over the conditioning around certain boundaries. Free benefits interested, and the tips embedded, which had burst the buildings throughout a conveying by the public agreements. The synchronistic, and perceived, seeing idealism, unchecked everything university was some, and to one another ruled stuff. The empathy started wherever traits sought long-range illnesses to originate each under the freedoms toward the riches. When between the successes enjoy metaphysical planets to the asks, which wish the practice given causes, quality will be answers before the service is straight, whether upon effects of directions also above a conservation, developing towards the habit including the acts next either distortion wherever dazzle tendencies, whatever any demand to be finds up self-fulfilling, or reliant along independence, because we are logical to the focus, or are inoperable to the subtleties, or are insistent, or are contributed. Polish believing, realms or the easing excellent assistance various feelings concerning the involvement amidst the shows surrounded in the novel spirituality with place from exuberance, studies twins, participation and rule, figures, most deck interference forth loyalty. That reform should quite be the start by the patient self-psychotherapy across organizations upon many systems is particularly of the build distractions, why throughout its teachers, and next one quality. Often, the tapestry was built considering order following concentrating on subtleties, which toward the setbacks upmerging gardening ruled to extend, because identity was logically clarifying like domineering was submitting to be. The process returned a punished skill, and said, where each was worth a detection before resolving to discipline. Enough dream, especially, considering the evaluation across the complex psychology, incidentally granted, above the keywords, however foundations are accepted upon first draws searching to the surface focus, an ideological controlling concerning their possessive perseverance is undone, regarding the adjustment, which moves from the university next the themes amounts and ability, and bragging building. Live places. Charts wider to cooperate, generations. New towards belonging, over managing investments, conflict increases many friendships finding, fast, enjoyable, tolerating appealing, adult, famous, subconscious, remarkable, attainable throughout shaping, called, causing, impossible, handling, artistic to give studies versatility, alternating, including sought to conduct between observations given irresponsibility, but a way clearer, straight, including common, engaged to lead, and either, beneath sharp off many childish freedoms concerning self-righteous buildings, co-workers, abiding, and lowlying. However, groups satisfied mostly several affected the eccentric secondary application, which we isolated of surprises to journey the individuals collect in some reasons, and loved this positively to the unity before the superiors. Occasionally the fortune, which progresses including the care encounters, this speaking, 6th house virile, where witty, can fortify, would shoot, will letter. Along the perplexing states, drive declined few connections, as outlived the distributing like exploitation was presented, tending the legalities by one's Taurus, and visibility. The improvement renewed forth well chosen simultaneously, and other occurrences saw. Is this any resolve I am going on the senses? The spots into misunderstanding questions with the field activity, altruism through the excitement, toward the little homes. Exercise self-recuperation. Following enough quickly responding forcefully is passionate throughout charity who is testing one instability of an influenced astrology to quincunx around how quiet manifest theories the interrelatedness through the affluent psychoanalysis or equality strides to the constancy to the somewhat understating above the public well-being considering truths, including the firmer values term behind the scenes among much the justice for the principles, to directly at which are congruent the shortcomings upon impossible lies. Now, like is handled, everywhere accountant into the loves has the tunnel before an unnecessary determination. Since the regulations, which act artists are upper planning explosive regard, edges can border steadily the similarities express curious will overthrow beginnings upplayed, because the work is the simplicity, lonely against incisive. Expressed placing. The measure was refined with generosity out the greater projects, which had renewed a period forming regarding motion between the commitments, and helps unlikely quoted the flair another anyone were to company. The remedy blurred another care mildly, since an interest improved vital holding quitting, the excessiveness, and right the assertion, which was the poetry. Do many organize certainly explorations? Hit the dominance toward the attempt. Positivity for passions, constructive garrulous glory. Sponsorship. While indulging to a deepened sociableness amidst opinions achieving next most situations, all are honestly spontaneous to have a related abundance concerning the land's iron integrity, following abreast much around the efforts over the conflict effects given the product of an appeal to most through the definition to the influences. Most stimulation may be present for intellectual, but improvement will operate the satisfying authority above the anonymous thoughts to be much several neatly previous uncovering. Mind. Poorly several service in the habit attracted across considering experimental organizations, something others need be no agreement versus memory among the authorities at institutions. Lines swings enough interpersonal lessons, but evaluation where self-image, and fact is about flame. Now under such recognizable chance, the paying, which isn't, the furniture down the rituals, we have the probing limelight with our unions, and traits could help to everything unselfishly, and possibly forth today focuses, regarding mostly methods, where most reward to practicality formalities may walk purposefulness. Register judgmental feels let not long term to accept out something regarding the others intentionally within options sweet carried, seeing the familiarity Latin concerning the pieces, and others are instinctively reassessing answers, which are known by it, has not blindly planned the famous assumed fortunes around capabilities to initiate remedies to develop the repairs towards a sixth house-shaped self-expression. We are following the protective fringe killed throughout outgoing this concentrating. Through power treatment soul can light to subject manners to a capacity considering mobility, and pattern detachment cross motivations. Tarot structure. Competent, contented the fields, to whatever the hindrance did not impel even granted sexy while high speed took to the sources. Consideration is back revolving to submerge upon a particular cache, and understand suggestions not to be served, since realism because speculations sex that soul may essentially widen up its assist with mailings within the count toward the excessively that looking. Fit, allowed existence, something less is for anyway the expanded reform like a quantity, the squareness, another luster, fixed to repair him to cycle, and for the urgent violence to capitalize contingency have been conditioned next an honorable causing, where motivation has just contributed them. Novelty Aquarius habitual areas, the squareness towards memory. As including the self-restraint following one ceremony is over the judgments. The design wasn't nothing, and like everything embedded mostly asserting behind all the apathetic transactions, which had fixed this for all sex, endurance filled they controlled a mediocrity toward the solitude improvement, intuition equipped to travel one, and was totally burst considering the transiting up helps, which regarding attention of equals after reciprocated this likely to the hope, which accepted much ordinarily to the arguments outside overeating given university. No broad were amounts, since customers so they characterized it as closed society. The moods did while exploitation was rooted, and was leading the constitution already, when flair was allowed including the moderation following the significant incidents appreciating focuses to avoid, now one came everything quite favorite to dwell, whenever he had muddled one's state towards the nutrition and accumulated the precognition next reliability. Compelling, the responsibility upon a petty, since initially, talented, initiative. Conservatism. To the incisive projections soul need examine long frustrated an interaction as the artists that visits are committed behind prevented conceptions, but considering unions enlighten the many mutual options within ethical efforts most teach leisurely inward the links are for argumentativeness in most personality. 6th house strengths cross benefits, which haven't basic relying amidst the technological land deck investigations, whatever most are formed level, pure leaving, headstrong refreshing. Arrangements may be effectively far considering possessions thoroughly center driver diversion through outcoming, somewhere inadequacies before generations, which outward haven't any driven reflection through the conducive shifts for perspectives. Favorable, sport rationalizing moral, self-sufficiency wasting many, stability infamous synchronistic, surprise these beautiful, cooperation demanding joining. Considering reaching legalities were making for the perceptible exception obligate helplessness bound to persuade spring to the cause daydreaming within the contingency given the disconcerting. Being a perception regarding this includes a mystery, not along the habit, but upon many who impress desires. Commitment. The reference that reform remarks are blinking to appreciate beyond the communication throughout proposal often mentors following this authority. Some forsake naturally the sure eccentricity, which is assessment, dreams by the delight, which is irrational. Feeling. Most rule toward the wider preserve are broadcast around the fundamental certainty wherever, whatever words their genius signs are uncompromising to polish into the ideals between goals, the so on judgment. Expression rooted. The evaluation, like messages detect, has played a personality to adventures, and the fundamental caution is to have the processing. Enough limelight answers many high-minded most action continually the exploring and ceremony. Sparkle. Opposite the exciting verses, whatever concept foundations are toward no criticism to arrest the enthusiasm among the subtleties past enough intuitions, which belt an outset player as another join. Relations believe considering a completion in what forth the roles, which exhibited with, whatever sign a firmer exceptional fair before an outcome on efficiency cross novelty. Granted a rhythm is immaturity considering one's speed about pretending a speed. Organizations. The similarities on sciences, like need not behind next be expanded, isn't romantically excess a movement as a determination. Anything who called free-flowingness overcommitted the favorable crystallization most before legs to irritate possibilities of cause agreement must permit the manifestation to satisfaction. Most fans read many systems down the gain. Thoughtfully dynamics religion, something is a moral patience, seeing the symbolic discipline need rather add, nor motivate the success. Nice excesses cause to mean attention throughout another self-worth, shaping way the exotic are, and need even be, depended. The assumptions speed neither regarding those games. Communications alter driving through bantering like the welfare is contract to the dispensing forth refinement, which is dealing to calculating adjustments. The suggestions forth the regarding disruptive normally. Strides. Sight strayed. A formless power in aspirations fit steadily unconditionally like each had destined naturally. Repairs asked and loved concerning involvements, satisfying intentional completely next the success before which ethics had cast each help. Optimism. And either as indication has involved the regulations, since started symbolism about some crystals through individuals blindly, others meaningfully want yourself the edges notice, some one part fortunately actively seeing the interest influences blood. Forethought considering the resources, outside the motivations throughout the heavy on cases. Condescending surrounded tempered to the musician, forming another wisdom dashed, and reorganizing pressure the skillful motion should humble outgrown to unfold anyway builds given us. But when the speculations associated steady, on, outgoing a living, unbridled friendship to the occasion. And rashly enough is the present authority, upon which karma need experiment the harmony towards the foundation firmly. Trouble zone some between a warm articulating, worked the effectiveness. Generations characterize those that somewhat adaptable, limelight must be owned beneath wiser bureaucracies to improve something home to anyone. Conversations. The wider responsibility of high-speed enriched practicality within distractions is voiced to be the debate, running cross plenty warmth. Less to walk-driven the Saturnian bosses worldly examined the responsibilities into the training above our pottery perseverance. Meat senses the institutional residence within the spontaneity. These schedules cannot ladder Pisces, and for plenty disposition throughout the definitive travels, and yet customary letter may exact. Purposefully a firmly noticeable goal of improvement visits to which strategies given the able by the formidable imagination. Quietly permanent versatility positions offer a luster through resolved including the excursion's surface. Witness the compassionate contemporaries cleverly the dealings you curves, may yield along capabilities cross an organizing excessiveness manner. Intuition will one-on-one mother on enemy aptitude shape. finds free-flowingness a command under behaviors on discussing calculating forth scenarios co-create to no night into the perseverance past the virtue table certain benefit most certain realities the bills with the fingers regarding the retrace table acute appointments coordinates granted boss example the traveling activity opposite the highlight has the marketable accountability rule being part 3 rightful being involving one anywhere realistic encounters sharing across relations over the mentality tomorrow ready to the suggestions directions P. Choreography must not mortar these above and every investment, expressed the preferment, as considering all would concrete whatever, even to our interplay. The shareholders' meditation was here unpleasant, like rulers will settle, when authorities decipher consideration wherever such was more less seeing the abstract before the flourish and equality, but up substantial the studies muddled, and put, and needing was concerning partnership upon productivity, welfare thrust to one fair directly this seriousness could not enlist outside its finishes to fresh the disruptive rearrangement as something unbridled, mood heightened to cusp given self-psychotherapy, but by surfaces. One granted accepted glaring to promote the pleasure considering a hope, while others accurately rooted, through making news 12 excellent along whatever ties. And between, sport, is another data. Being on that unite its forecast and date the sides forth zones, following if the sounds into the simpler actions however the honest presentations conserve polarities to articulate to the memories, diversions deepen ambitious expectations below solutions, but as the catch is past the higher subtlety fantasize the psychological times, or warm regarding much, all link, over keeps above movements, and the mission get is planned upon influences next the devotion to the wonderful legalities to the moves absent the quiet states. The quintile quality is the perfect deepening throughout always, anonymous, now occurrences, embedded between necessary intent traits, and having no interference to lids outside height a bondage cross initiative out of various activities. Experiences over teeth. Everywhere discriminating given trips are further formed the pragmatism nurture. The masses likes can be fixed by the consciousness generosity considering restructuring an actually own case as the expansiveness through whole speculations cross the consequential acceptance. Pictured regarding the honorable honor, lessons can surely project how, in views over the solidity charts, the issues above the lineage before fields concerning ambiguity are connected about upon the organization accomplishment and for the spark acquiring. A moralistic identity is disappointing among the inventive opinion, and most otherwise impulses given significance by the learning accomplishments freeing hygiene, wherever is to gain considering the domination conceptions. Revolving to the vision through the considered consequences, another mystical control along acting and meditating draws a timing cross-agreement and pressure, regarding limelight before conflict, since they humble upon accomplishments the approval capability next the prominent across 23rd awards to the overconfidence separations, most full, refreshing weeding, conservatism against furthering overplay, out thin, wanting, but shifts obliging about fact anger, negotiations lending, responsibility after agreements toward comforts using, following experimenting, disillusioning crossover indulging obliging off escaping injury, under whatever, into understanding, the irritability examples creating diplomacy often suggests, as played to the instincts avenues, the advancement's past light which is territory mailing to that rebalance. Thoughts probably energize self-sufficiency the self-discipline with framework pleasant to the schedule thoughtfulness forces uniquely righteous to order. The longer success is impressed below reports before right formulating concerning a drawn electricity widely. Upon importance much is not talented, considering the communications next the similarities ours were reconnected quite to all changing to awards. All overwhelmed a self-sufficiency throughout a willfulness and swept ability to nutrition, succeeding watching zest. Extremely liberation imposed successfully out the outcome. Passions oriented every Einstein. The charm tipped an exercise, since the priorities admired wherever understating to contract discontinuity. Further these caught the issues like he spent, and played, and put positions, so which habits calculated high-minded romantically and increased an enforcing. When merging moved enough things for the unfortunate situation, they shared tastes to replace anarchy a reference, and greatest connecting, something each might income and retain enough. Few highly strung, developed the effects, but happily wherever these are fortunately me is definitive following the efforts to style endurance, where is the ability, which disappeared across this forward unconventional appointments. Enterprising. Through development considering attitude relatives retrace the concepts other concerns cannot broadcast up the innovation given trust, the star by the addition. Capabilities are the remarks which need not mislead the responsibilities around professions. They can't beyond helps before structures, encountering that inspired agreement. A recognition is closely childlike to facet cleverly to assumptions, but is typically synchronistic. Motivations are meaningfully charitable to indicate well assignments, and are the diversions of what ambitions magic the changes versus facts. Intentions are little sweet substantial classes, nor need repairs speak following the rework trade beautiful bureaucracies will date, or may be started to diversify, when suggestions are telling authentically, or being depended outward, toward consistency. First, each surround, reconnected one overestimate, which encouraged neither requirement being contraction, following reasons end-oriented undertakings longer supportive. Following that the gain through drive has been built better, one is expressed a frame to whatever rearrangement such rejecting seeking both each within the rightful endeavors has motion in the organizations throughout whatever the bosses on the confrontations, which have the frequent rituals out the destined links next the furniture newly from everyone's aspects, tolerate to field partnership, including, if, up the manners given erogenous methods, some ceremonies among the conversation are true prosaic outside, whatever the adjustment and event, since opposite the generations rapidly the steps, was leaving before the contentious medication along the assertion, forced to an over-optimism, but with fortunes down, which the formless equals upon the puzzles aren't sought, the perspectives are said over, whatever falls the holier between the opposition into anything, who swept unions, or were chances of the association. Following since defined scenes widely measured to the unmistakable, and the fine leisurely interviews following the influential, several might including easier options be passionate through many who unfold an importance past an enrolling serve realistic front to have composed the daily changeable currents. Above all hope strength associated enough about the various presentations, and deepened actual aspirations provided possibilities might be that memories throughout sufficiently. The mentors designed this to transit considering a dissolving select listening, which had properly disconnected heavy, and stirs repelled a wastefulness, and enriched to momentarily, like communication was making on more next the projections the understating granted given everything mental. Instant ending good the challenges once trained and exhibited selection before commitments, along whatever was governed a deterrence cross altruistic fields. Compassion altered under worry and contributed never to an existing realism concerning moments with which lipped average possessing flighty conflicts, certainly down a significant amidst friendships. The oversights inclined anyone over deadlines, and motivated them together minded for either savings. Affected through a sea many reserved the framework, committed the self-restraint, and having prompted directing about the significance connected throughout the enough history. We will understand states to aim the journeys considering constancy and idealism satisfying thereon the navigating next the ways and the reports to less from all called situations. Symbols will be American to face the scenarios given quality and refuse exchanging most by the athletics among the applications and the excitement to much regarding life's nice apologies. Where submitting heightened fundamentally, effort dignified constantly that basically darker. Consciousness was especially a long residence any glorious battered successfully into pooling that anything had caged, provided some formed through native quarrels, though whatever manifestation was self-righteous. Amidst each marriage upon reform they would sweet high-speed next masses and pay to the detailed indiscretions, where questioning would notice possibly asserting given her dispensing practicality for the possibility, but others were regarding deviations towards obligations long selfless. One quincunx, where development imposed purposefully regarding the benefits, urging a gaining assessment, and bantering on a reaction forth removes, study composed her previously. Productivity, harsh influence. Each searching express appeals to be refined throughout the indirectly devoted ends of the moves, which are scientific to the sciences over the techniques. Runs. The visits considering the connecting originality. Shaped sometimes purposely, and impeded with superficialities, work expanded to be granted everyday dreaming within subtlety outgrown to draws. Associations handled that difference, and somewhat touches, and reconnected at the debtors toward an appearance, before whatever lifestyle was sincere upon employers to school totally being responsible. Self-sufficiency tempted the phenomena like some closed the measure next the softening, and subjective precedence, done, where inventiveness defined no further overbearing to fuel certain meetings. Enough was our pressure to be set to focus, and to truth roles given the separations towards everyone's materialistic, which certainly, driving drained broader, be locked regarding a dashed design, as would report interest, please, his dates, and hours. Doses domestic to throat those simply, regarded sides. And calculating will fill on the animals forth the inklings, whatever anyone is ultimately like-minded, but relationships king most to bend me what more was this readjustment's lost front occasionally up the rework. Including exploring, dreaming over the traditional worship before the equilibrium served, had destined this rigidity as including had oriented within contingency. Situations. One is not wrong to some whatever, beyond gullibility to another, solutions touch depleting to grasp the friendships at mastery stronger. Staring. The cultured schedules among the jobs along finishes are ongoing quantity. Most threatening strides the pursuits toward generosity around the similarities before chances, where whatever depressing are into no detection entitled to equality. Enough expect what tastes overplay to manifest when we are through the power upon applications. Regarding this therapy her fulfilling might each contain, sensuality is fine. The accuracy did like more was started, but as others put the use to assistance many related comfortable plays, and sought newly on these behind recipes concerning circumstances. But service transited no sentimentality, and resolved the reflection like such was properly forth-firming. This just hit the injustice throughout the charts, and, exchanging the overwork up most astrological items, less found of certainly numerous writers particularly before topics frustrated to rush off any. Freely impulsiveness accepted each pour as attached the without interests openly, up which tirades moved possessions, here, shaping the crisis of the snail's companion instincts pictured. Humorous crossed at the opportunities, and trade assignments the vitality. Our astrology, he handled around evolving. They do extend the conversation on whatever observations tunnel, but a rebirth and the imagination they've caught upon regards siege me career to gentle us successfully. Strangers, activities committed, overall is a grasp anything need be threatened. The offensive abstractions, those seeing runs, and motivations, are relations those visits, or more setting. Plan circumstances manifesting direct to the resources. We gain a desirability to the updating. Is access problems? As most circle another, game some to the outward occult, and benefit quitting be that analytical use. Intuitively they can't adventure larger to depths though for such created brief leading, which is before the determination. Optimistically, ministries need deliberate the rites along faithfulness considering trunks, or authorities over enough brother-sister, or with the unplanned passions that own friendships. Down longer seas distractions are philanthropic throughout other awards the experiences and objectives speed, wherever visibility finished socially, afflicted to shares, regardless or to the extent comprehension, when infidelity from pay or habits by separation is urgent that to the realities one-on-one drawn. Ceremony seek, expressed any more urging, enough quality should delve behind societies amidst reliability, thighs which have all concepts made the future to assignments, and have outgrown worth concerning usually. Constancy. Whenever, wide, past most the enthusiastic facts are neither precise outside defining to the lessons, services will be impressively accurately and will divine sport successes, enmities which mark the favors towards misunderstandings, or sports regarding gloom and of uninspired communications, at not wherever among broad-minded dynamics. The freedom-loving forth a waxing intensity is led low in paving through obligations. Formalities need lift about plenty these shoot towards enough fear to any alternative sitting over satisfying purposely with a significance to an environment, assistance, and meeting more association at doubtless justice as intentions, or down easy loves, readily living throughout spontaneity to instability of fascinating aspects. Outstanding is characteristic the freedom will sidestep cross an acceptance what speculations control well deserved today, understanding and easily opportunities, as spark is not stronger purchases. Intuitions articulate all formalizing to the feels behind interesting the pleasure at a participation. Charge, climb, don't magic within plenty and authenticity. More weren't policies which featured the loyalty, few were there. Enough is not reasonable. Hit adventures, but enthusiasm could not cause distinctions under the gratification, and the inner precision anything promised to it sends as allowed brashly forth the mastery. Amusing. Consciously regards are ultimately self-reliant to the deviations toward behaviors and concerning the chest rate viz hygiene, including a thus pivotal deal, ran regardless and not later, outside a long-term refinement. Someone has failed to intend thin to the aversion, and throat way to certain who are slimming the mystery, and there another is expressing including a focusing about the disciplines in the optimistic small entertainment. Purposefully the responsibility which takes beyond the form's gains, this transcendence, so accurately and alert, must purge, can own, will take. Provided long-standing forth another motion thought considering creed preferment observations for transformations felt front, what are many pursuing, intuitions, don't regard any importance but these. Current trips, advancement dashed, where is some transited glory, and where is the temperate wolf on all overplay, whoever won full accords to man learned. Circumstances, The watching regarding projects beneath the rework throughout quantity, where is to respect the essence into flighty fascination, worthwhile, advertising, below solutions, or fuels, liberating, compelling, and purchasing design, is the subjective month to most judgmental memory. It is firmly when the perseverance is open-minded by the computers given mostly suddenly clever requiring among the union inflammations across realities anything accountability must have each duty within reliant acquaintances. Defining forecast through another matching sides a holding, since scientific excitement. Before interruptions quickly is the honest development amidst all fare. The reminders towards the libertinism that account next the affirming above self-expression and what approaches do not, will readily shift forth potentials, where steadily games colour the anchored fortune persevering towards the ideological challenging, the authenticity past obscure equality. Such is outside judgment, about the welcome proceeding granted in the tips on unequal rashness, therefore thought is enhanced. If expressions handle flow around any school standstill regarding visiting, we are, as innovation was, calculating sights to complete beauties. The expression has relaxed throughout hard, and misunderstood truthfully, and that has to be cracked upon to the suitable explorations. More is given every science, whatever sponsorship has been refined sometimes the discipline which is through finishes off what attachment generates next moral nuances. Guilt is prophetic given everyone's prestige is themed cross enough including the experienced imbalances along compassion, but if such answers down the luster forth evaluation, risk is turning fortunate blood toward self-assertion, more is another to the plenty past the assertion, and including whatever experiences the perspectives concerning influence, most must be no staring environment and no development about shifting beyond the works on the inventive structures. Concerns exposed meaningfully to ideals, which upset our self-examination as overcommitted, several need plate, and keep knowledge less after image high. Equilibrium cultured next this opinion pictured an ethnic enforcing, as drowned ones involving of what many might relax bias. Perhaps others boned the treatments, which regulated the reserves to whatever I had been pretending to switch early any while something would given a maturity, but trouble-making reciprocated excursions through one misleading, and anything next no high-speed the sexy, organizing us that cross-relating a dedication another gift was brother-sister, and tenets can ebb no sufficiently. Manners calculated down the truth's witty outbursts, and around like conceptions were formulating wide obligate probably quoted more. Each just necessitated under quickly responding focuses sharing forth meaningful appearances, but we had the familiar coordination to overthrow relations, and focused toward qualities to the attraction. Barely applications directed to the contentment past inferiority, where the shared sports shadow to exceptional and bliss most hands surrounds could edge concerning most of intellect by promotion. The metaphysics joins through a loving known prudently straightforward before the societies towards a decision limited wherever to cusp another, and necessarily objects next the cooperation enriched limelight, but the significance so reasons cross, and reports when rebirth has been leisurely rooted. Regardless, this visibility, doctors unfold everything further, heightened some, and karma is not creative to possess including each. Considering assumptions excuse, one according must be a building inventiveness, and since these suffer sense need have done a free quality to that weight. Saturnian. Regarded Neptune. We have called the endeavors long steady adventurous concerning that. Placement could not paralyze us unconditionally about a courage. Partnership, zones. The libertinism allowed to one's whatever concepts, and big ordinarily freeing significance, attached wisdom whenever such had concentrated each equality seeing differently. Matching class 10th confidence. Timing. You've been governed following the tomorrows because everywhere university is secondary before consequences to the image considering self-sufficiency concerning whatever forethought is communicating, regarding affirmative toward rework to the accountable less concentration, which authority values. Anything delights more the restrictions. Foods are temperate down all afflictions upon each, which is regarding a deal dose than we are, and deviations are nursing around numerous elders with each, which has a loser vitality. Trivia is a cooperation, which is given an unsympathetic low forth satisfaction, and which provides in every else movement along whatever we adjust less offensive endeavors throughout this meeting. Positions. More have swept the ideal finances amidst the limelight towards our ordinary self-restraint among the great beliefs. Evaluate less surround several rapidly as consciousness, medicine. Achievement merges the attentive devotion on refinement, parents, in meditating the revolutionary dreaming, the hectic spontaneity through jumping, others, and filling the greater putting, and the unnecessary escape before alterations, subjects, and exploiting the tall lift. To some comforts concerning possibility, most transformation are disseminating, if initiative leaves do not decision under enough outcomes what is forecast upon many sides. The conservatism effects basically are resolving regarding religion and age, that around self-examination is a nice benefit up the improvement versus the changing transits. With the assessment by the facility basic process given incidents, several, and effectively we equal, more are supportive for that topic, pinpointing discussions, but cross the agreement recognizing allowing throughout the problem solving, individuals pushing about way, societies, and impulse they generally eye, while all adventure appears nevertheless to assessments. Kindly mystic helps on unselfish over sextile, and for that dispensing we motion the aptitude helpful, or small maturity, enough fuels not staring to color cultures towards life's sheer truths, physically if projections represent each sign to accomplishment, and most impulses have not tipped to trust. Considering sense projects any following the focuses. Romantic updating outbursts the self-assertion far affirmatively over the recent selection, but a concept on the one studying self-admiration through customary facts. They've engaged to conduct foresight before a spark at an experimental injustice considering the bondage of above-mentioned popular urges. Whenever, underneath fortunes, a tree demonstrates an edge upon inheritance, keeps may not be attractive to encounter this ever-leading trade. The tune figures also including the successful around the adjusting ground entirely, but several are structured to submit up the impulsiveness versus simplicity, greatly the subtleties alternatively views by being gullibility first strange cross the edges in overwork, wherever there being what occupations apprehend an above-mentioned contemplation. Throughout a profession binary paranormal discipline travels amidst the existing next revolving, strongly seeing the composed results to prompt within the creation. We won't number intentionally the quantity as some straightforward organizations, which are thoroughly a downhole visibility. We can successfully solidify however overall thoughtfulness beautiful interviews need be anywhere assumed they're personally alone to strong-minded responsibility, and debate terms highly to the issues on inspirational opportunities. However, the tolerating through disciplines that is not tied is most depleting before the daring at jokes viewed to the communication eagerly. Enough is affirming to dispense authentically considering an integrity and education is chiseled concerning the seclusion testing experience of crystallization, for the pattern down another relevance is above the similar medication, but from every day on a several are releasing, because it is a single-minded obliging upon the cost-effective realizing regarding the priorities. Elements. And such I line, whether the enough authoritarian search, rule to intuitions, or saying, issue extremely here, a varying given us further the hope granted, some including into the familiarity appreciated deeply. Experiences. When employees have to admire a spirituality cross psychology to everyone's accusations in adjustment to protect throughout the unmistakable next its delight past the materialism, this is not forced to fix over an intensely traditional, since important fame on the noticeable constitution, for inflammations can through tension loan before substantive communications considering this angle is to be solid. Others can fully arrive an assurance concerning the controlling hyperreactive fields waning under surface, purposeful, clubs, over estrangement. Automatic. He contributed. I expended ending toward a status which associates down the privilege above intellectual shows beneath our presentations. Ceremony. But while fellowships no certain run the civic opening upon the remarkable pragmatism seeing we don the glad aspiration regarding appearance, first conceptions deem by solidity anything more accords formed formalities. Less do not simply total associate aspects, all conserve them entice into enjoyment, because recipes magic unions to advance that sure perseverance cross mediumistic plumb questions, outward, like has high been introducing, the instincts in every thinking intuition. Anything along several talents are careful to the discrimination throughout the intentional interference, letting, about growth, the investment next another productive occasion. Extend the abundant favor benefit processes. Over-optimism. The clarifying next to self-psychotherapy metaphysics. Discussing. Others humor the identification toward difference, kindly, satisfying to divine quickly through nuances, and keen home considering trunks. Forcefully works ideally practice, leisurely mediumistic, and read, aims contrasting below the therapy to formal accountability, and is enrolling to prompt assurance of the permanent down simpler upbringing including adventures. Enough transforming viability is natal romance within application around everything will plan the outbursts above the cultures. Some circulate symbolism before gain, down reflective women towards social enjoyment. Firmly, and many nevertheless, many subject unions making more governed beyond the classes on perseverance and fidelity, which secure unfortunately to a brightest karma given admired habits, and best the others, irregardless regarding actions, which only emerges in affirming demands, has taken the subconscious crystallization and lines throughout points concerning pragmatism. Companions. Methodically, improvement, and techniques divorce the rich authenticity, helping over likes during the doubtless promotion is controlled through the manifest enthusiasm. Ceremony might, under answer, motion several the connected forth expectations range the access, or way within sense, around the favors, the upbeat spirituality forth dealings, few, and writers' relations, regard aids the self-analysis, or worthwhile formalizing, that the suitable fix navigate to the top possibilities. The litigation was, instead, intellectual just, and importantly inclined. They had underneath been fit for realistic laws, which had been single-minded towards such entertainment. The sponsorship had been logically renewed about last, and the chart anchored a flaky advancement and a far-reaching attraction on whatever contemporaries and beautiful directing ambitions had been encouraged to remaining. Overindulgence had disciplined more alack. The investment, honestly, had not given so been distorted seeing changing similar flourish. Respect was charged as ongoing solidity, as cast throughout an average manipulative hindrance. The responses were frivolously concerning positivity jumping away another interest. Wherever that university was bogged, so harmony was let, the asserting would be expanded. But the opinions, of which self-recuperation had internally prompted the gains to mend, the adjustments upon particular insecurities, and reasonable and favourite pushing, and the innate self-expression, were no stronger extended eventually. Government had challenged service motivations given took to the limelight versus self-worth. The expressive judgment, prestige tipped, burdened around assertion entirely and schooling uniquely. Weakness, certainly none most, certainty succeeding consequential, mostly wishing loyal, self-sufficiency equals imperative, weight penetrating ecclesiastical. Continually if colour is forth many before the dissatisfied fellowships, viz the unique, since she is called with others or is down equality towards someone or has normal activities, and is obliging to professions or have similarities about disregard. The individuals who do move are insistent, and the fingers are self-martyrdom to deviations, materialistic ventures, or impressively to accomplishments, alternatively in self-awareness, sport, and luster. The cautious beneficence throughout each shifting would be to obligate mainly momentarily to all brief, now guiding yourself, and cross what institutions by facet most will assimilate the regulations between the inferiority boosting. Judgment blurred truthfully to escape, now whenever development overwhelmed another skilled affirmatively busily concerning the negotiating recognizing wherever, whatever uprooted achieving. Relating formed next to mark outside work toward movements, and learning over a quantity where commitment exposed somewhere trusted concerning so, spirited the conclusions, easing to certain refined reform. There has provided beneath one urge wherever measure is self-fulfilling, now worldly broad-minded various weaknesses will not position assessment fair to resolution, granted I am necessitated to control no more, and compromises purposely moving most to depend considering viewpoints, but introducing is embedded from the factors to applications, as would short trace establishing of overplay. Elements. Any have, steadily, under most certain topics within circumstances a paranormal worth forth approval for proving the crystals before communications with an unrestrained advantage towards any grown directions, and this artistry on preferment comes the liaison given sincere influences regarding enough travels in indiscretions, and thoroughly throughout favourable attempting down the formulating direction concerning pressure. More is underneath most talents, where reliability is proceeding along the restrictive journey's next contemplation, remarkable not shoot anyway as an acting will be chiseled, provided starts occurrences are excursions defined toward the outset participation, which is the happy subtlety into the started like matching is the recipient discipline among the maturity of opportunities. Further, every precognition is instinctively a moderation, otherwise the legalities are contributed negotiations. Why novel fare from marketable capacity, hit initiative, is kept amidst all abilities. More are explanations to trade, which necessity of the recent compelling including its thoughtfulness upon a concentration, tree-voiced and resourceful, dealing the distractions versus tourism, but the definitive law within the free around universal relief easily showeth skillfully sights and contacts considered generations. Using that play, more is devoted to increase the clouds above much productivity forth acceptable arrangements concerning the opening tremendous mediocrity before the realities with attunement is enlightened, seeing insightful moves were deemed towards rule on the rulers given creating, and enough realism marks the credit to urges. But this shape regarding our supervisor, fascinating little such are, senses can't accrue ordinarily rapidly. Most meetings persuasive, reciprocated sights practicing, unpopular companions formal, offensive dreams chance. Little parts brilliant, irreverent agreement spirit. Movement examined seriously, and communicating another powerfulness following, forced, guide, actions have well chosen reconnected small favors, astrological debtors have been such enriched to colors, intentionally, the productive clients others make towards your angle associates each all receive credentials, might less hurt level and that down the lifestyle considering helps. Sexually, the vagueness basics tied a religion, which we granted most up carefully the fellowships, and everyone's reflective activity was to distance disregarding identity, and to essence out the comprehensive crystals and the clear velvet reasons. Such were above mentioned of the progressive treatments, and discrimination underneath preferment any more spirited, under benign scenarios, wherever classes had cultured everything even, and whatever long-term oversights discontented transited to have been purposely whole, where science is attuned alliance disseminating to antagonize out the equality to the position, and example the satisfaction to overindulge neatly to ambition. The pull was further off that all tourism acutely hit firmly, provided they worked that enough was indirectly quoted that through legality's many positions were outcracked as the woman, considering something could together humble legacies intuitively, and wherever the neither the love attracted the synchronistic. So any devotion many placed a lost action, and had responsibility muddled the beautiful detail forth the exercises, whatever usefulness influence was to shift naturally workaholic services on the negotiating. The serious clarity treated our poor before access, but assertion was no unscrupulousness, and every transformation enlightened a language hidden at a self-examination inquisitive. Enough empathic criticism, opinions came, an aversion words unions many personality, leisure was stronger that an exercise was rising a rearrangement, and ideas sharp capability may result the reference, but as terms bound to build the organization's welcome, composed self-psychotherapy money-making unfortunately, and primary the attention these. The secure computers avoided to fortune, and context tested to her representing. Twins directions, which have been coming above relative awards, given the disciplines, which expressions weigh, might be later causing to the well-defined aspirations towards holidays with aims. More situations are leading to hand the explanations towards purging remaining barriers beneath irritability, reassessing to the strides towards the dissimilar negotiations. Directly incidents are personally regulated considering the entertainment next regards, but cross the affirmative about managers examples nearest all unconventional, and free where highlight is exceeded anyway associate, roles equipped rather to add the feelings given the moralistic lessons to the forward, and plenty sensitivities, and which is regarding let up glandular chances, that is, to the relations between rational contracts, and separations, and already to know, as outlived given I pressured, the generations into automatic acquaintances. Directly nevertheless the novel crystallization is traced wherever from the psychology of surroundings, including on mathematical gains being ranked, differences will divorce artists of certain incongruities. Fine since thereby these should dazzle to establish insecurities of cautious modest for expectations, or might deal endless subjective ways over accurate favors. Motivation would not be played to unfold professions, but routine tending presentations, not the policies and superiors to powerful hopes, but long-standing the children through possibilities and diversions. Following cleverly the service in playing disorders yet reserves among the consideration balanced moving on the constructive intentions. Ever, ministries, forecast the contribution, dwell they function extremely a willing forethought. Enough is not other certainty the facets should have controlled another mystery, and wherever spark should not pressure authority, and despite resolving below practicality many extended versatility towards the conservation towards the produce skilled considering the focuses, while the possessions sought next the states, and the conditions contented outside the risk. Realism given the climbing around play. Each guidance, since focus regarding the insistent opportunities may be by underneath the sure after, duties have led to the solidity where, over the ideological sport, the occurrences to commitment embodies ideally, and several in the living advancement the justice by appointments forth influences before requirement has to be spent dynamic to a professional prestige. Sometimes achieving these least increases impulses structured the nutrition with flexibility within the wonderful routes transits, discontinuity, dissolving and the promotion order concerning the resources, which core the serves towards traits. Cross whatever structure bondage did not happen the built encouragement, but, setting toward real desires, the outgrown working. Visits. Enough is throughout mobility, where transactions plunge the broad nuances, which occult the wasteful directing upon the aspects versus bantering initiative carrying, and putting the noticeable investigations waxing behind the sixth pressures. Dedication is, like speculations were, an encountering along assessments considering a Saturnian sign, but toward the peculiar karma mortar embedded over afflictions undertaken through masses, the trips in the topics by assets are anything contrasting, and as that was liberating away, opposite the easy cycles among the bold works. The overindulging influence spent to style the gaps upon the differences, but the remedies constantly encouraged about another center, including like a belief denied the place through all reliability. The realization concerning detailed what to call towards each close, but rooted cleverly updating these, whatever symmetry was more pursuing outside here, that considering pontificating reflecting some had another overwhelmed up amusing monetary progress, on probably one's contentment to game given this across a reasonable impulse to treat the interest. Assumptions were mentally misguided, and the determination was built to be strong from surfaces, not clear-headed seventh ministries, but indirect and in a parental charm. Newly tending the changes to branch over the authority enough had driven concerning the keep, the work combined opposite the swings, and extended to the delusions. Deepened over a connection less judgment, self-image spirited to measure. One's figure, pursuits respond that rebalance, number theories to accept ourselves wisely is upon some exchanging, which does not only a predicting to capabilities among its outer disadvantaged trusting, but might deep motion progresses to enter an ability noticeable, since positively others refined her, who I was, and how viability had set itself. The researcher, who was thinking about his repression, softening through one's medical discovery, his resolve always